Chapter 1. Wang Chong knew that this was his final destiny in this world. The death of the barbarians is not as great as the death of the Xia dynasty. This was a sentence from the Luan language. Wang Chong had never imagined that in this distant universe, the Xia dynasty would really be destroyed. And he was the final witness of this scene. The sky was burning and the earth was trembling. Countless corpses piled up like mountains and seas, and fresh blood flowed like rivers. Wang Chong could even see the thick aura of death rising from the ground. Those were the corpses of the millions of citizens of the Xia dynasty. From all directions, countless non-human cavalries were slowly encircling them like an ocean. No one knew where these foreign cavalry came from, and no one knew why they were constantly destroying this world. They only knew that 10 years ago, these foreign cavalry, which were filled with the thick aura of death, appeared out of nowhere. Moreover, in just a few short years, they destroyed all the empires as easily as breaking dry weeds and smashing rotten wood. With the appearance of these foreign cavalry, the entire land began to tremble, and the earth began to collapse and be destroyed. Millions of living beings were reduced to bones. And now what Wang Chong led was the final military force of this world. In the center of this ocean, Wang Chong led the final army of the Central Plains like duckweed, awaiting his final fate. After so many years of hardship, Wang Chong thought that his heart had been tempered to be strong enough. But when this fated moment arrived, Wang Chong's heart couldn't help but tremble. Sorrow, pain, and despair surged in his heart, but it wasn't for himself. Instead, it was for the brothers beside him, as well as the final fate of this Central Plains that was connected to him by blood. General, please forgive me for leaving first. It isn't your fault that we have come this far. General, you have already done your best. There's no need to be sad. Our brothers have long come to this realization. We didn't throw the face of the Tang dynasty. To be able to accompany General in this life has been worth it. General, let us meet again in the next life. Brats of the foreign races, come. Let us fight again. Ha ha ha. Familiar figures dashed past him one after another, letting out hearty laughs, then resolutely and decisively dashed into the ocean of non-humankind armies like moths flying into a flame. Farewell, my dearest brothers. I will be reuniting with all of you soon. Wang Chong's eyes were finally overwhelmed by tears as he looked at those figures, which were like blooming epiphyllum blooming in the middle of the night. Wang Chong wasn't a soul of this world. In fact, if there were no accidents, he should still be enjoying the sunshine and rain in another space-time continuum. After completing his university life, he should be living a peaceful life. However, 30 years ago, a mysterious meteor suddenly appeared and brought him into a world that was similar to the Great Tang in Chinese history, yet completely different. He became a 15-year-old son of a family of generals. When he first arrived here, he was once rebellious and hesitant. He felt that he didn't fit in with everything here and thought that everything had nothing to do with him. But when a great calamity swept through the world, those who loved him and those he loved died one by one. Only then did Wang Chong suddenly wake up and have the heart to advance forward. But it was too late. In this world, Wang Chong had experienced many things. Wandering from place to place for more than 10 years, he had lost the best chance of cultivation in his life. It was only due to fate that a few seniors of the empire took a liking to him because of the military commanding skills he had accumulated from playing strategy games in his previous life. They poured all of their vitality into him, making him the last grand marshal of the empire in the calamity, shouldering the last hope of the Central Plains. But it was too late. He had missed out on too many things. Even though he had done his best, he still failed. Wang Chong slowly closed his eyes, his heart filled with sorrow. He wasn't afraid of death, but he couldn't die yet. He was still waiting. There was one person that he couldn't let rest in peace even if he died if he didn't kill him. He was the culprit behind all of this. If not for him, the empire wouldn't have weakened to such an extent. Wang Chong was filled with hatred. Only blood could wash away the boundless hatred in his heart. But the other party was too cunning. He never showed himself easily, nor did he give Wang Chong a chance. But this time, when he used himself as bait to appear in this dangerous valley, Wang Chong knew that the other party wouldn't be able to resist appearing. The other party had been in hiding for more than 30 years. But this time, when victory was at hand, he wouldn't hide anymore. Wang Chong, give up. I've already spoken to the great king. As long as you're willing to surrender, I'll spare your life. Suddenly a voice sounded from afar. Behind the vast army of foreign cavalry, a plump and trembling figure cautiously peeked out half his head. His eyes were gleeful, but they were tinged with fear and apprehension. He wasn't a cowardly person, but only the heavens knew why the fellow before him was so formidable. Even though he didn't have many soldiers on him, he was able to kill 10 times his number of enemies. Even though he had only been in control of the Central Plains for a few short years, the number of foreign warriors who had died in his hands was more than the total number of foreign warriors from the past few decades. If not for his fear of this fellow, he wouldn't have hidden for so long. Traitor! Wang Chong stared at the figure with hatred in his eyes. If not for someone guiding them and colluding with them, how could these foreign cavalry cause so much destruction and conquer so many lands in such a short period of time? And all of this was thanks to him. He, Wang Chong, as expected of the god of war of the Central Plains. For a profligate scion of the Wang clan to become the Grand Marshal of the Central Plains is truly inconceivable. If those old men had picked you 30 years ago, they would have chosen you as their heir. Perhaps the Wang clan had not fallen back then, and the Central Plains might really have a chance. But unfortunately it's all too late. The figure was proud of himself. Wang Chong, let me give you a word of advice. You are a talented person. The king has already said that as long as you submit to him, he will spare your life and turn you into one of them. How about it? Think about it carefully. However, Wang Chong didn't seem to hear anything. Kong Yaoyuoshan. Wang Chong called out his real name, his eyes spitting fire of hatred. He had been waiting for this moment for so long. In the end, the despicable fellow couldn't help but show himself. Let's die together with the Tang dynasty. The earth rumbled and a majestic halo shot out from Wang Chong's spear. In an instant it was as if a dazzling sun had appeared in the world, so dazzling that people couldn't even open their eyes. Retreat, retreat. The sight of Wang Chong's appearance caused the tens of thousands of foreign cavalry to explode with panic and retreat like a tide. Protect Lord Divine Emissary. A few foreign experts reacted and gathered at Kong Yaoyuoshan's side, exploding with halos and black flames. But it was too late. Rumble. A blazing light that caused the world to change color fell from the sky like a meteor, instantly enveloping the hundreds of foreign experts and the figure in their midst. You! There was a short and piercing scream. That chubby face twisted in fear in that towering light, and then it was reduced to ashes. Even in death, he had never imagined that Wang Chong, who was at the end of his rope, would still use his full strength to attack him. Resentment, struggle, but none of them were a match for that invincible spear. I finally succeeded. At this moment Wang Chong was filled with an indescribable joy. Father, mother, and all the living beings of the Central Plains, you can all rest in peace. As death approached, Wang Chong's mouth curled into a faint smile. He looked at the countless spears piercing towards him with relief. Rumble. In the final instant, Wang Chong completely detonated his dantian, causing the thousands of foreign cavalry around him to sink into oblivion. It was said that the moment before death would be incomparably long. Who would have thought that it was true? Wang Chong smiled sadly, but his heart was incomparably calm. After so many years he could finally be free. However, in the depths of his heart, there was a deep pain. In a split second, Wang Chong suddenly thought of his grandfather, third uncle, parents, eldest brother, second brother, and cousin. If only he hadn't been so willful back then. If only he had come to his senses in time, stepped forward bravely, and used his talent in the art of war to protect this family and this land. How good would that have been? It was all too late now. All the people who loved him and the people he loved had all left. All the people he loved deeply had left him. If he could start over, he would never do that again. Unfortunately, it was all too late. From now on, the Central Plains would become the hunting ground of the foreign cavalry. 1,000 years later, no one would know that there was a race called Yan Huang in this world, and a land called the Tang dynasty. Wang Chong's heart was filled with regret, dejection, and unwillingness. It shouldn't be like this. Tears of regret flowed from the corners of Wang Chong's eyes. If he could start over again and make up for those regrets, he was willing to give up everything. Rumble. As this thought flashed through Wang Chong's mind, thunder suddenly rumbled in the depths of the sky. At the moment when his life was about to be extinguished, in the depths of the darkness, Wang Chong suddenly saw a vigorous shooting star. Wasn't this the shooting star that brought him to this world? A mechanical voice rang in Wang Chong's ears, devoid of any emotion. Child of destiny. He is the child of destiny. Stop him. The terrified cries of countless foreign cavalry came from the darkness. For the first time, these foreign beings who didn't know what death was showed deep fear and reverence. However, Wang Chong didn't know any of this. His vision turned black, and Wang Chong completely sank into oblivion. Why are you called a transmigrator? After what seemed like a split second, but also like countless long centuries, Wang Chong was suddenly awakened by a curious voice. The voice seemed to be near yet far, and it was as clear as a silver bell, carrying with it a sense of innocence and immaturity. Like a stone falling into a lake, countless ripples spread through Wang Chong's consciousness. Who was it? Whose voice was that? Didn't they say that death was like a lamp going out? Why could he still hear it? Could it be a hallucination? Just as Wang Chong was thinking, he suddenly heard an unhappy snort. Before Wang Chong could react, he felt something poke his body. It was a finger. Wang Chong immediately realized what was going on. No, if a person was dead, where would his body come from? Could it be that he wasn't dead yet? As this thought flashed through his mind, Wang Chong's heart suddenly surged with great waves. With great effort, Wang Chong opened his eyes. Soon a bright ray of light shot into his eyes. Facing the light, everything in front of him turned from dark to bright. Not far from him, Wang Chong saw a little girl about 10 years old. She was pouting and looking at him with dissatisfaction. Who told you to ignore me? The little girl poked Wang Chong with her slender finger again. Little sister? Wang Chong looked at her in disbelief. The little girl's eyebrows were like crescent moons, her eyes were bright, and her skin was white with a tinge of red. Paired with a pair of silver-red leather pants, she looked like a jade sculpture. However, the two braids on her head that looked like firecrackers betrayed her mischievous nature. Who else could it be other than his youngest sister? But hadn't his little sister already? Wang Chong stared in front of him in a daze, his mind completely unable to react. Hadn't he already died? He clearly remembered that at the last moment, in order to assassinate Kong Yaoyuan, he had resolutely charged into the endless horde of foreign soldiers. How could he see his little sister here? And his little sister was so young. She clearly looked like she was 10 years old. He was only 5 years older than his little sister. If his little sister was 10 years old, then wouldn't he be? Wang Chong raised his arm. Very quickly Wang Chong saw a pair of thin white and tender arms. This was completely different from what he remembered. In that instant Wang Chong was speechless. Could it be that he had been reborn? Wang Chong's heart was filled with joy, apprehension, and more than anything else worry. Little sister, pinch me, Wang Chong suddenly said. As soon as he said those words, Wang Chong saw a fair and tender hand stretching toward him. A faint white ripple appeared around the hand. These faint ripples condensed and did not dissipate. They were like steel and iron, giving off an extremely powerful feeling. Origin Energy Tier 9. Wang Chong's heart twitched. This faint white ripple was the symbol of an Origin Energy Tier 9 expert. How could he have forgotten that his little sister was talented from a young age? And she was a Hercules with unparalleled strength. Wasn't he asking for trouble if he allowed her to pinch him to wake him up? Little sister, don't. Wang Chong's face warped. He wanted to stop her, but it was already too late. Kacha, a crisp sound echoed, and Wang Chong felt as if his radius had been broken. Little sister, let go. Hearing Wang Chong's scream, the little girl stuck out her tongue in embarrassment and retracted her finger. Little brother, you can't blame me. You're the one who asked me to do this. The little girl stuck out her tongue as she spoke. She had no intention of apologizing at all. Wang Chong smiled bitterly, as expected of the little sister in his memory. She was talented, able to lift mountains, and her unstoppable strength wasn't something an ordinary person could withstand. However, even as he rubbed his aching wrist, Wang Chong was overjoyed. There was pain perception and sight. This meant that he wasn't hallucinating. He was really still alive. Could it be that the heavens really heard my voice? At this moment, Wang Chong's heart was filled with complicated emotions. Third brother, it's not that I want to criticize you. Stop interacting with that bastard Ma Zhou in the future. That fellow isn't a good person. He caused third brother to be taught a lesson by father, and others even said that he abducted a lady. Does my third brother need to abduct a lady? That bastard. The next time I see him, I'll definitely teach him a lesson. Every time I see him, I'll beat him up. On the other side, the little girl seemed to have thought of something. She suddenly furrowed her eyebrows and looked furious. Her two terrifying little hands were clenched so tightly that they made cracking sounds. It was obvious that her resentment wasn't small. Little sister. Hearing his little sister's sincere voice, Wang Chong's nose turned sour. Hugging his little sister Wang Yaoer, his heart was incomparably touched. This was his little sister, the little sister who loved her brother so much. Unfortunately, back then he was too much of a bastard and couldn't feel it. Only when he lost her did he feel regret. In this life, even if the heavens gave him another chance, no matter what, he wouldn't let his little sister encounter those things again. Little sister, thank you. But there's no need. I'll personally deal with that bastard Ma Zhou. Wang Chong said softly. Wang Yaoer was startled. She raised her head from Wang Chong's embrace. Her big eyes reflected Wang Chong's eyes, and her eyes were filled with surprise. This third brother of hers seems to be different today. Looking at how sloppy he usually was and how he made friends with a bunch of scoundrels, he didn't seem like someone who would say such words. That's right, third brother, you still haven't told me. What is a transmigrator? What does transmigrator mean? How come I've never heard of it before? Wang Yaoer thought of something. Her big round eyes stared at Wang Chong. There were two big question marks in her eyes. In the end, she still hasn't said what she cared about the most. Wang Yaoer was quite dissatisfied with Wang Chong's actions. This, even if Wang Chong's skin was thick, hearing his little sister's words, he couldn't help but rub his nose with a face of embarrassment. Regarding that transmigrator joke, it was when he first transmigrated from another universe to this world. At that time, his heart was filled with resentment. He was not used to everything and didn't know anyone. He only felt that he was a hurried passerby in this world, like an illusory bubble. Coincidentally, he saw this braided, arrogant, and very fun little sister of his running to find him and calling him third brother. In a moment of childishness, he teased her and made her call him transmigrator. However, his little sister took his joke seriously. Time and time again she asked him, what is a transmigrator? Thinking about it carefully, it should be this time. Thinking about this joke, Wang Chong felt extremely awkward in his heart. This transmigrator, it means a handsome guy. Handsome guy? Little sister's eyes widened, and she was even more confused. It means a handsome little brother. Wang Chong laughed loudly. Little brother, you lied to me. Little sister instantly flew into a rage. Although she was young, she wasn't so easy to lie to. Little sister, I suddenly remembered. I'm afraid father will be back soon. You should hurry back. Otherwise you'll be in trouble if you're discovered. Wang Chong felt cold sweat in his heart and hurriedly changed the topic. Little sister's thoughts were pure. Although she trusted him, if she found out that he was lying to her, with her astonishing strength, she would fly into a rage, and he would probably suffer. Humph. Little sister's cheeks puffed up, her anger difficult to dissipate. She was young, but she wasn't so easy to lie to. Little brother obviously wasn't telling the truth. Wang Chong coaxed and lied, and finally managed to trick her away with great difficulty. However, when she left, she was furious, clearly very dissatisfied. Father will be back in a while. Mother told me to call you and tell you to remember to go to the main hall to eat later. Rumble. Hearing these words as if a thunderbolt flashed through his mind, Wang Chong's heart suddenly shivered. Little sister said, and angrily walked out of the door. Wang Chong touched his forehead, feeling a cold sweat on his hand. He really thought that she sneaked in. She may have deceived father, but she couldn't escape mother's discerning eyes. However, it wasn't surprising at all. With little sister's ability, how could she escape from Buddha's five-finger mountain? After little sister left, Wang Chong closed the door, leaned his back against the wall, and raised his head slightly, staring at the high roof. His expression was slightly cold, and his expression slowly calmed down. What happened today was too strange, he needed time to think about it. The scene before his death once again floated in his mind, and the meteor that he saw at the end also slowly became clear. Some distant memories seemed to have been forgotten, but at this time they became clear. Wang Chong remembered clearly that in 2022 AD on Earth on a blazing summer day, he was walking on the streets when he was struck by a meteor, and he was brought to this foreign world. Back then, when he transmigrated here, he thought that he would receive some benefits of transmigrating, but in reality, he was just an ordinary person. Even at the moment of his death, other than his identity as the son of a general, he looked no different from any other ordinary human. That meteor, that mysterious meteor, other than bringing him to this foreign world far away from his own universe, didn't show any other miracles. Who could have thought that at the moment of his death, it would suddenly appear again? Is it resentment? Or is it indignation at the very end? Wang Chong's heart was in turmoil. No matter what, he had really gone back in time. He had really returned to 30 years ago. That year he was 15, and his little sister was 10. The Central Plains was welcoming the most prosperous and powerful era in its history. Regardless of whether it was the Qin dynasty or the Great Han dynasty, there had never been a dynasty that expanded its territory to such an extent. From the east to the East Sea, from the west to the Pamir Mountains, from the south to Jiaoxi, and from the north to the Yin Mountains, all of them belonged to the empire. With an army of 600,000, the Tang dynasty stabilized the Central Plains, suppressing all of the Hu and barbarian countries by the borders. The army was filled with brilliant generals, and it was said that there were 100 generals shining at the same time. Even the Hu submitted to this massive empire. In just a few decades, the empire's territory continued to expand, and it finally reached its current state. Without a doubt, this was the center of the world. This was the most powerful era in the Central Plains. And that person in the royal palace was also known as the Holy Emperor in the Central Plains. In the Central Plains, everyone was filled with complacency, and there was a sense of pride everywhere. But other than Wang Chong, no one knew that beneath its powerful exterior, the empire was in the midst of a decline, on the path of decline. Under the illusion of the Golden Age, horses and bows were useless, and there were countless dangers within. On the plateau to the west of the Tang dynasty, Uzan was rapidly rising, entering his most powerful era. Further west, the white-clothed Abbasid Caliphate fell, replaced by the most powerful black-clothed Abbasid Caliphate in the history of the Arab Empire. In the northeast, Yun Ghasemin was preparing his army, and in the south, Irai was also surging with undercurrents. All of these dangers could be triggered at any moment. But in the Tang dynasty, everyone was still immersed in the illusion of prosperity, unaware of these hidden dangers. In fact, when the barbarians were preparing their army and eyeing the Central Plains, the Confucians were still brewing a new thought in the court, attempting to have the imperial court dismiss its army, return its territory, and promote benevolence and righteousness, using etiquette to influence the barbarians, in exchange for a long period of peace between the Central Plains and the barbarians. This was an unprecedented self-crippling of martial arts. A tiger's claws were crippled, and a wolf's fangs were plucked out. 4 years later, when the barbarians attacked like tigers and wolves, when an even greater calamity swept over, the Central Plains would no longer be able to resist. 4 years later, when these dangers erupted together, it would be a calamity that would cause the southeast to collapse and the northwest to sink. This vast and glorious empire would completely decline. And the clan that he deeply loved would also go from prosperity to decline in these 4 years, falling apart and falling into complete decline. From a lofty clan of ministers and generals, it would be reduced to struggling in the mud. In his last life, he had been muddle-headed, only waking up when everything could no longer be salvaged. But in this life, with all of his memories and experiences, he would not allow this to happen again. Back then, he had pondered countless times over why this vast empire would fall apart in such a short period of time. If he could carry out the plan that he had thought of 30 years later, he would still be able to make it. But before that, he first had to stop another major matter that was about to happen in this clan. Little sister, big brother, father, mother, and the entire Wang clan. Everyone was affected by this matter. It was precisely after this matter that the Wang clan slowly fell into decline, and it was difficult to turn back. After this matter, the people that he loved and those who loved him slowly left him after experiencing a series of events. And all of this happened not long after he transcended to this world. Just that back then he was still ignorant. But in this life he would never give up. If he didn't sweep a house, how could he sweep the world? If the nest was overturned, how could the eggs remain intact? If he couldn't save this clan, how could he save the world? No matter what, he had to stop it. Chapter 2. The autumn wind rustled. The closer he got to the dining hall, the more nervous Wang Chong felt. Most likely, the more one loses someone, the more they know how precious they are. In his previous life, he was muddle-headed, unconcerned about anything and didn't care about anything. It was hard to imagine that just going to a meal would make him feel nervous. This should be the feeling of homesickness, Wang Chong thought. Raising his head, he saw two large doors with lion heads. In front of him was the dining hall. The Wang clan wasn't a noble clan, so it didn't have strict rules. However, it was still a clan of ministers and generals. Even though his mother didn't set down many rules, there were still rules of a large clan. There were many children in the clan, and no matter who it was, including his father, as long as they were still in the capital, they had to have a meal together. Everyone gathered around a large table and ate happily. This was the last day after Wang Chong was grounded. In the past 7 days, it was also the first time the family had a meal together. However, this wasn't what Wang Chong cared about. If there were no accidents, his father should have returned by now. Due to his official position, his father left early and returned late every day. Even though he was his son, he couldn't see him whenever he wanted to. After that incident, his father would quickly leave the capital and return to the military camp. He probably wouldn't be able to see him for at least half a year. If he wanted to stop that incident and change the fate of the clan, this family gathering was his best chance, as well as his last chance. However, would his father believe in him? Thinking of himself, Wang Chong fell silent. In his previous life, he thought of himself as a transmigrator who was frivolous and played around with life. He had done far too many ridiculous things. In the beginning, he wanted to be a wanderer in this world, so he spent every night outside and made a bunch of scoundrels. The Mazhou that his little sister mentioned was one of them. In his previous life, Wang Chong had a straightforward personality. He didn't have many scheming thoughts. He thought that they were friends and should be honest with each other. Who would have thought that these spoiled brats like him were so scheming? On the surface, they called each other brothers but stabbed each other in the back. These fellows used his name to commit all sorts of atrocities outside. In the end, there was even an incident of him forcibly abducting a woman in broad daylight. If it was anything else, it would have been fine, but forcibly abducting a civilian girl was too much. Even his father, who led the troops outside and rarely disciplined him, could not stand it anymore. When he learned of this matter, he flew into a rage and rushed back from the encampment overnight. Because of this, Wang Chong was placed in confinement for 7 days. On this matter, his father was completely disappointed in him. Although he had been rebellious and abnormal for a long period of time after he had transmigrated and did some outrageous things, he had not fallen to such an extent. But forcibly abducting a girl, this had already challenged his father's bottom line. From then on, his father had completely given up on him and no longer cared about him. Wang Chong only learned of this matter a long time after it had happened. Being tricked by Mazhou and the other bastards using his name, Wang Chong was extremely depressed. However, he couldn't say these things. If it wasn't for his poor judgment, how could he have been tricked by others? With his father and mother's current mood, no matter what he said, they probably wouldn't listen to him. What could an ignorant and incompetent hedonistic son of rich parents do? What decent things could he say? Thinking of this, Wang Chong's heart was extremely bitter. He had to swallow the bitter fruit that he had sown. No matter what, I can't continue being a bastard. No matter what, I have to change my father's impression of me. Wang Chong knew that if he wanted to change his parents' prejudices, this family gathering was his last chance. No matter what, he had to let them understand that he was no longer the same person as before. He had to slowly win back their confidence in him. Wang Chong took a deep breath. He already knew what to do. Young master. The doors of the Lion Head residence were tightly shut. Upon seeing Wang Chong walking over, the two well-built guards at the entrance immediately bowed and greeted him. The two of them had the backs of a bear and they stood there like iron towers. With a single look, one could tell that they were elite soldiers on the battlefield. "Thank you for your hard work." Wang Chong stopped by the two of them and thanked them sincerely. He recognized the two guards. They were handpicked by his father from the military camp and were stationed in the residence. A long journey tests the stamina of a horse, and time reveals a person's heart. In his previous life, Wang Chong didn't care about the names of these guards. Even when a huge change occurred in the residence and all of the guards and servants were dismissed, only these two guards and a few other servants remained. Until the arrival of the chaotic tide. These two guards died just like the thousands of others. Even until their deaths, they still carried out their duties loyally. It was then that Wang Chong remembered their names. One of them was Shen Hai and the other was Meng Long. They were the most loyal guards in the residence. "Young master." The two guards stared at Wang Chong with astonishment in their eyes. In the past, this young master had always been arrogant and unruly. He would never speak to guards like them. Yet this time he actually took the initiative to greet them. This was the first time in his life. The two of them could see the astonishment in each other's eyes. Wang Chong knew what they were thinking about. He chuckled and didn't explain. Rome wasn't built in a single day. His previous image was too terrible, and it was difficult to change it in a short period of time. However, once the first step was taken, there would be a second step. Sooner or later, they would realize that they had changed. Placing his hands on the lion head door knocker, Wang Chong pushed it open forcefully and walked in. The creaking of the door was extremely loud in the hall. "Smells good." Wang Chong walked in, and before he could even get a good look, he could already smell the thick aroma of food that made one's mouth water. In the huge room, there was a huge table that could accommodate a dozen people. More than 20 sumptuous dishes were placed on it. "It's been a long time since I've eaten such a sumptuous meal." Being enticed by the fragrance, Wang Chong also felt his stomach churning. Thinking back on his 7 days of confinement, his meals had always been bland. How could it be so sumptuous? However, even though the dishes were sumptuous, the atmosphere in the hall wasn't right. Wang Chong was taken aback. Lifting his head to take a glance, he saw his father and mother sitting by the side of the long table. Both of their faces were dark, and neither of them were looking at him. Even though the fragrance of the dishes permeated the air, the two of them didn't move at all. Only the gluttonous little sister by the side had her head buried in the table. With a pair of chopsticks in one hand and a bowl in the other, she opened her mouth and ate furiously. Her two ponytails were trembling by the side of the table, but her ponytails were nowhere to be seen. The little sister of the Wang family had two hobbies. One was to eat and the other was to play. The first time Wang Chong saw her eat, he was almost scared to death. How was this a little girl? She was clearly a starving beast. However, thinking about her astounding strength, Wang Chong felt relieved. In the family, only his little sister was allowed to eat without following the meal schedule. However, in the past, when his little sister ate, her bowl would be clinking noisily. However, this time her mouth was wide open but no sound came out. Clearly, she knew that the atmosphere wasn't right. The entire hall was deathly silent. "You. Die. Set. Dead." His little sister held her bowl, and as she ate furiously, she threw a pitiful gaze at him from afar. She could already see the tragic fate of her brother. Even though the little girl was innocent, she was extremely vengeful. She hadn't forgotten that her brother had lied to her previously. Wang Chong didn't have the time to bother with his irritating little sister. He knew that even though his father and mother had released him, this matter wasn't over yet. Father, mother. Wang Chong did not do as he usually did, silently sitting at the table and burying his head in his food like an ostrich. Instead, he circled around the table and stopped at the side of his father and mother. Upon seeing Wang Chong's actions, his little sister's mouth was agape. What was her little brother doing? Didn't he know that her father and mother were in a fit of rage? Wasn't he courting death by walking over at this moment? However, something that shocked the Wang family's little sister even more happened. "I know that I was in the wrong this time around. In the future, I will sever all ties with those people in the past, and I won't associate with them anymore." Wang Chong lowered his head and said, "Pacta." The Wang family's little sister raised her chopsticks and stared at her brother's serious face. She was so shocked that her lower jaw nearly fell to the ground. What was going on? Her brother actually took the initiative to admit his mistake? Did she hear wrongly? Rubbing her eyes, the Wang family's little sister confirmed that she didn't hear wrongly. In the hall, the heavy, and stone-like atmosphere suddenly loosened. At the head of the table, there was a beautiful middle-aged woman wearing a large peony green gauze gown, with her hair combed, looking dignified and elegant. Her face twitched, and a trace of extreme surprise flashed in her eyes. This child actually took the initiative to admit his mistake? Zhao Shuhua couldn't believe her ears. She had tried to reprimand him for this matter countless of times, but he didn't listen to her at all. He didn't even care about confinement and beatings. There were times when Zhao Shuhua felt that she was a failure as a mother. This made her depressed in private, but she didn't show it in front of her children. But this time he actually took the initiative to apologize. Could it be that this child has really changed? In that instant, Zhao Shuhua lost her composure. She hoped that her child had really changed, but she was afraid that this was just her wishful thinking. After all, his previous performance was simply too poor. You unfilial son. Do you still admit your mistake? A cold voice sounded. It was Wang Chong's father, Wang Yan, who spoke by the side. Wang Chong's father had a dignified expression and a pair of blazing eyes. Sitting there, it felt as though a spear had pierced through his body, exerting a powerful pressure on one. In the Book of Rites, the father is benevolent and the son is filial, but Wang Chong felt immense pressure. Wang Chong knew that this was the result of his father concealing his aura. What are you saying? Can't Chong'er repent? Didn't you hear him admit his mistake? Zhao Shuhua was worried that Wang Chong was just trying to cheer her up, but upon hearing Father Wang's words, she immediately felt displeased. It was a rule of the royal court that women weren't allowed to interfere in politics. Zhao Shuhua had never interfered in Father Wang's political and military affairs. However, Father Wang was often away from home, so the 4 children and the huge residence were all managed by Madame Wang. In terms of educating the children, Madame Wang had absolute authority. Even though Father Wang was the commander of the army on the battlefield, he wasn't able to influence Madame Wang in this aspect. Even though Wang Chong's head was lowered, he could clearly see through his father's expression. Even though Father Wang Yan's face was still cold and he didn't even look at him, his expression seemed to have warmed up a little. He wasn't as rigid and tense as before. Clearly, his apology wasn't completely useless. Father, you are right. Chong'er was too mischievous and foolish in the past, causing father and mother to worry. In the future, Chong'er will definitely turn over a new leaf. Wang Chong lowered his head and said. Those words caused Father Wang and Mother Wang to raise their heads simultaneously. The both of them could see the shock in each other's eyes. It was one thing for this unfilial son to apologize previously, but this time around, he didn't retort even after being reprimanded by them. This was as though the sun had risen from the west. It might be a coincidence if it happened once, but it might not be the same the second time. Could it be that this unfilial son had really changed and realized his mistakes? Chong'er, don't listen to your father. Hurry and sit down. How can you keep a straight face when we are eating together? Mother Wang hurriedly instructed. Wang Chong replied with un before returning to his seat. Obediently, he lowered his head, not moving at all. Since Father Wang and Mother Wang hadn't moved their chopsticks yet, Wang Chong didn't move either. When Father Wang and Mother Wang saw this, they were shocked. This child has really changed. At this moment, the one who felt the most gratified was Mother Wang Zhao Shuhua, who didn't wish for their son to become a dragon and their daughter to become a phoenix. However, this child's behavior was simply too heartbreaking. Could it be that their prayers were answered and this child had really grown up? Chapter 3. Wang Chong's heart is full of guilt. Wang Chong can see his mother's reaction. Just admitting his mistake, apologizing, and sitting upright at the dining table can make his mother this happy. It can be seen how much of a scoundrel he was in his previous life. In his previous life, he uncontrollably crossed over from another world, refusing to accept everything. Although they have always regarded him as their own son, deep in his heart, Wang Chong always thought that they weren't his biological parents. Therefore, in his heart, Wang Chong always felt a deep sense of alienation from them. This is also the reason why in his previous life, Wang Chong wasn't afraid of beatings, wasn't afraid of punishment, and didn't listen to instructions. Wang Chong always thought that this wasn't his world, and that he was just a passerby here. Everything was just a fleeting cloud of smoke and foam in his life. But the facts proved him to be very wrong. Only those who have lost something will know how to cherish it. Only those who have nothing will know how precious everything is. In his previous life, after experiencing that upheaval after his family fell, he originally thought that his past performance would make his father, mother, and relatives abandon him. But it was precisely them in the most difficult times, in the most difficult drifting days like duckweed, who never left him and always took care of him. As long as there was food to eat, he was always the first to eat. Thinking of his mother, who was less than 50 years old, with a head full of white hair, like a 60 or 70-year-old person, Wang Chong's heart is filled with a sense of guilt. At the last moment, his mother died in his arms. The moment that towering body fell, Wang Chong was shocked to realize how thin and weak her body was. Wang Chong's heart is bleeding. It was also at that moment that Wang Chong's heart was broken, collapsed, and thoroughly died. For the next 30 years, the living Wang Chong would be nothing more than a shell. My mother. Why are you so good to me? At that moment Wang Chong's heart wept like a tiger, and he issued a mournful howl in the majestic rain. That was the first time he cried in this world. At that moment the entire world collapsed. Wang Chong suddenly came to his senses, but it was too late, too late. Perhaps the heavens had heard his inner voice, and gave him another chance to start from the beginning again. Wang Chong's heart ached as he looked at his mother sitting by the table. Mother, don't worry. In this life I will never make you sad again. And I will never let anyone hurt you again. Anyone. Wang Chong clenched his fists under the table and swore in his heart. Come, let's eat. Pick up your chopsticks and eat. If there's anything, we'll talk about it later. Madame Wang Zhaoshuhua was in a good mood. She picked up her chopsticks and picked up a large piece of soft and crispy roast chicken for Wang Chong. Mother, you eat too. Wang Chong picked up his chopsticks and placed a large amount of rice in his mother's bowl. Madame Wang was worried about the senior captain, so she put on a stern face. Father Wang, who was dissatisfied with Wang Chong, also felt much better. Filial piety was the most important of the 3 cardinal principles and 5 virtues. This fellow actually knew how to pick food for his mother. This was a huge improvement. After causing such a huge commotion this time, he must have woken up. Thinking of this, the thought in his heart became even more vivid. Father, mother, I have something to tell you too. I hope that you two can agree to it. Just when everyone was about to dig in, Wang Chong placed his chopsticks down. His gaze flickered as he contemplated what he wanted to say. What do you want this time? The moment Wang Chong spoke, Father Wang's face darkened and his gaze turned cold. This bastard, after doing such a thing, I thought that he had changed for the better. Yet a leopard cannot change its spots. He had said so much and acted so obediently just to negotiate with him now. He wanted to see what this unfilial son of his wanted to do. Chong, or what do you want to say? Madame Wang wasn't like Father Wang. Instead, she was interested and asked in anticipation. Most probably, the one who trusted their child the most would always be the mother. On this point, Madame Wang didn't think as much as Father Wang. Father, mother, I have thought about it for a long time. Wang Chong lowered his head in contemplation. Whether he could win back his parents' trust depended on this matter. Wang Chong knew that what he was going to say next would be extremely important to him. I want to join the army, Wang Chong said. The moment he said those words, the entire hall trembled. In an instant, everyone in the hall was dumbfounded. Everything that Wang Chong had said before added together couldn't be compared to this. Madame Wang's lips trembled as she stared at her son in a daze. She wanted to say something but no words came out. The impact of this news was too great. She needed time to digest it. Even Father Wang, who had been speaking coldly to Wang Chong all this while, revealed an expression of extreme shock on his face. He was a general who led an army on the battlefield. Even if MT-Tai collapsed before him, he wouldn't bat an eyelid. However, the matter that Wang Chong said was too shocking for him. This son of his was too mischievous. He idled around all day, and didn't have any desire to improve himself. He even made friends with a bunch of scoundrels. This time he even abducted a lady, causing the Wang clan to lose all face and become a laughingstock. He pondered over this painful experience and decided to send Wang Chong to the army camp in advance. The army camp was the best place to temper a person. Perhaps only the army camp could change this unfilial son of his. Even if Wang Chong didn't mention this matter, he was prepared to bring it up at the dinner table. He had already thought it through. Whether Mother Wang agreed or not, whether Wang Chong was willing or not, this matter was set in stone and couldn't be changed. He didn't expect that Wang Chong would take the initiative to bring it up. It was because he knew what kind of person this unfilial son of his was that Father Wang was deeply moved. He also knew that it wasn't easy for Wang Chong to make such a decision. Joining the army wasn't a treat. There was no need to talk about the dangers involved. If Wang Chong's previous behavior was just a little scheming, then joining the army wasn't a joke. A prodigal son is more precious than gold. Could it be that after experiencing so many things, this unfilial son of his had really turned over a new leaf? At this moment, Father Wang was overjoyed. He started to believe that his son had really changed. Wang Chong observed his son's expression and knew that his words had an effect. As someone who had lived 2 lives, Wang Chong knew that even if he didn't bring it up, his father would bring up the matter of him joining the army as a punishment. In his previous life he resisted for a very long time. However, it was all futile. His father had already made up his mind and it couldn't be changed. In this life, since he knew that this matter couldn't be changed, he might as well take the initiative to bring it up. This way he could change his father's impression of him and win back his father's trust. Furthermore, thinking about it carefully, this matter wasn't a bad thing. Just that it was worth considering how he should go about it. Chonger, you're still too young to join the army. However, this isn't a big deal. Have you thought about which place you want to join? I'll let them know in advance. Father Wang said. In the past, he had always called Wang Chong an unfilial son. However, this time, he actually took the initiative to call him Chonger. From this, it could be seen that he was delighted by Wang Chong's decision. Father, I have thought it through. I would like to start from the training camp. I would like to participate in the Kunwu training camp to hone my skills before joining the army. Wang Chong said the words that he had been thinking about for a long time. Kunwu training camp? Father Wang was astonished. He had just received news from the royal court that His Majesty had decided to set up Kunwu Shanwei and Longwei to train the youth army for the royal court. How did this unfilial son of his know about this matter so secretively? But thinking about it, this unfilial son of his had always been acquainted with scoundrels. Perhaps he might have heard about it from somewhere else. Why did you choose the Kunwu training camp? Father Wang quickly calmed down and said with a deep voice, there are also Shanwei and Longwei training camps. Kunwu is meant for the descendants of ordinary generals. On the other hand, Shanwei and Longwei are of a higher level than Kunwu. They are meant for the descendants of nobles and nobles in the capital. I believe that the training there should be more complete and of a higher level than Kunwu. If it's there, it might be beneficial to your future. If you have thought it through, I can use your grandfather's influence to get you to join Shanwei and Longwei training camps. Father Wang was only a general at the border, not a nobility. From this point, Wang Chong could only be considered as an ordinary descendant of ministers and generals. However, Wang Chong's grandfather was different. In the past, he was a meritorious minister who supported the current emperor to successfully ascend to the throne. Later on, he was promoted to the position of the left premier. His students and old acquaintances were all over the court. Although he had retired, his influence was still there. Father Wang said that it wouldn't be a problem to use Master Wang Chong's influence to get Wang Chong to join Shanwei and Longwei training camps. Wang Chong remained silent. His father had good intentions, but Wang Chong knew that contrary to what Father Wang said, Kunwu was the best choice out of the 3 great camps. The current emperor was wise and mighty. In his previous life, it was also around this time that he established the Kunwu, Shanwei, and Longwei training camps in order to select talents from the capital's generals, ministers, nobles, as well as the sons and daughters of influential families to form the youth army. Currently, the 3 training camps were just established and everything was still unclear. Everyone thought that Shanwei and Longwei's levels were higher than Kunwu. so they were the best choice. For a long period of time after that, there would be a large number of people who would rack their brains to join these two camps. However, Wang Chong knew that time would prove that Kunwa was the best choice. In the days to come, when the great turmoil came, the older generation of ministers and generals fell one after another. Almost 90% of the most elite generals of the Tang dynasty came from this Kungwu training camp. However, it was not good to tell his father about this. "Father, I have thought it through. Kungwu is more suitable for me. After living in the capital for so many years, I basically know all the descendants of the nobles and dukes in Shangjing. Father wants to send me to Shunwei and Longwei. The others must also be thinking the same. If I go to Shunwei and Longwei training camps, won't I run into Ma Zhou and the others?" Wang Chong could only come up with some other excuses to dodge the question. Initially, Father Wang was against it. However, after thinking about it, the incident between Wang Chong and those scoundrel friends had just happened not too long ago. It wasn't easy for Wang Chong to turn over a new leaf and make some progress. If he were to mix around with Ma Zhou and the others, it would be too late for regrets if he were to return to his old ways. Father Wang would lose his original intention of sending him to the training camp. "Since you have thought it through, we'll do as you say," Father Wang said with a frown. Even though he didn't agree with Wang Chong's decision, Wang Chong's words weren't unreasonable. Thus, he reluctantly accepted Wang Chong's explanation. "If you two have anything important to discuss, wait until after the meal. Chong, or ignore your father. Come, hurry up and eat." By the side, Madame Wang was overjoyed to hear what Wang Chong said. When she first heard that Wang Chong was going to join the army, she had truly been given a fright, and her heart was filled with worry. However, when she heard that he was only going to the training camp, she heaved a sigh of relief. The Wang family was a family of ministers and generals. Since Wang Chong was only 15 this year, it wasn't unacceptable for Madame Wang to attend the training camp before joining the army. This was the case for all the families of ministers and generals in Shangjing. As the descendants of ministers and generals, all of them had to step onto the battlefield sooner or later. This was something that the madams of Shangjing had to understand from the very start. Wang Chong didn't say anything else. He picked up his bowl and chopsticks and started eating. "I don't know if father will listen to me later," Wang Chong said nervously. Chapter 4. Without a doubt, this was the happiest meal he had in this period of time. Laughter could be heard throughout the meal, and Madame Wang's face was beaming with joy. She constantly placed food on Wang Chong's plate, causing Wang Chong's plate to be filled to the brim. On the other hand, Father Wang was no longer as solemn as before. Under Madame Wang's urging, he took the initiative to place some food on Wang Chong's plate. "Third brother, you're incredible." Upon seeing this sight, the Wang family's little sister was stunned. She shot a glance from beneath the table and was filled with admiration for her brother. She thought that her brother wouldn't be able to escape this calamity, and she was prepared to witness a tragedy. She didn't expect that not only did her father and mother not punish him, they even laughed heartily and rewarded her third brother. In fact, even her father took the initiative to place food on her third brother's plate. Even the Wang family's little sister couldn't help but feel jealous. She had lived in the family for so long, but she had never enjoyed such treatment. "Father, I don't care, I want it too." The Wang family's little sister pushed her bowl to Father Wang angrily. "You are a lady, how can you behave like this?" Father Wang said with a stern face, causing the Wang family's little sister to feel aggrieved. Tears welled up in her eyes. Seeing this, Madame Wang found it both funny and infuriating. "Here, mother will give it to you. Brother will give you some as well." Wang Chong chuckled inwardly as he placed some food on his little sister's plate. "Thank you, brother." The Wang family's little sister's tears turned into a smile, and she continued eating happily. It was as though she had forgotten about the previous incident. The entire family ate happily. "Father, I heard that you are going to meet Lord Yao?" Wang Chong lowered his head to eat and asked abruptly. The atmosphere on the dining table suddenly turned stiff. Madame Wang hurriedly shot a glance at Wang Chong, and the Wang family's little sister was so frightened that her bowl and chopsticks hung in the air. Everyone in the family knew that Father Wang didn't like to discuss official matters. He didn't like his family interfering in his affairs either. "Where did you hear that from?" Father Wang lifted his head and said calmly. Wang Chong saw it clearly. His father's brows furrowed imperceptibly as he looked across the dining table. It was obvious that he was a little unhappy with Wang Chong's question. Wang Chong's heart skipped a beat, but he could only bite the bullet and continue. This matter was very important to him. If he couldn't change this fated matter, then all his previous efforts would be in vain. I overheard it by accident when father and mother were talking. Wang Chong braced himself and said nervously. Whether it would succeed or not would depend on what he said next. Oh, Father Wang's eyebrows twitched. Only then did he remember that he had mentioned this matter to his wife, Zhao Shuhua, once. However, it was only once. He didn't expect Wang Chong to hear it. That's right, there is such a thing. Why do you ask? Wang Chong's previous good performance was effective. Father Wang did not get angry. Instead, he allowed him to continue. Clearly, he was slowly treating him as an adult. A person who was about to enter the training camp and enter the battlefield was indeed not suitable to be treated as a child. Lord Yao has always been on bad terms with father. But this time, he took the initiative to ask father to meet. I feel that he has ulterior motives. Wang Chong said carefully. Wang Chong knew that his father hated it when his family interfered in his official affairs. Such words shouldn't be said by a 15-year-old child, but Wang Chong couldn't help but say it. In his previous life, Lord Yao Guangyi used official business to invite his father, whom he didn't have much of a relationship with, to attend a meeting. Actually, his father wasn't completely unguarded. If Yao Guangyi said something during the meeting, it would be fine if he tried to rope him in. His father would definitely reject him. But this Yao Guangyi was extremely cunning. He didn't say anything during the meeting and only dragged his father to drink, chatting about insignificant matters. After that, Yao Guangyi intentionally revealed this matter to the King of Song. The King of Song was a relative of the royal family and was involved in the Ministry of War. He was one of the few people in the royal family who wielded real power and had a say in the Ministry of War. Because of his grandfather, the King of Song doted on his father. The King of Song's contribution was undeniable that his father was able to reach his current position at such a young age and become a general with real power. How could the King of Song not be angry that his father hid from the King of Song and had a secret meeting with Yao Guangyi, who was loyal to King Qi? Normally it wouldn't be a big deal. However, the King of Song and King Qi were currently fighting openly and covertly in the royal court. They were like fire and water. The King of Song's students and old acquaintances in the royal court had been roped in by King Qi and had all switched sides. As a result, the King of Song was isolated in the royal court and his influence was greatly reduced. These matters were a huge blow to the King of Song, causing him to be extremely suspicious. It was easy to imagine how the King of Song felt when his father met with Yao Guangyi in private. What was even worse was that his father had a straightforward personality and didn't know how to be flexible. He clearly knew that the King of Song was suspicious, but he still said that Yao Guangyi contacted him and didn't talk about anything. The two of them just drank for the entire afternoon. How could the King of Song believe that two opposing ministers of the royal court met in private and didn't talk about anything other than drinking? Not only did his father's explanation fail to provide a clear explanation, it even caused the King of Song to think that not only did his father betray him, but he also intentionally humiliated him after defecting to King Qi. Furthermore, Yao Guangyi intentionally misled the King of Song and played a series of tricks by the borders, causing the King of Song's misunderstanding of his father to worsen. He also believed that the Wang clan was opportunistic, and seeing that he wasn't gaining the upper hand, sided with King Qi. As the saying goes, the deeper the love, the more intense the hatred. The King of Song had a close relationship with the Wang clan over the past few generations. He was the closest to the Wang clan and supported them the most. As such, he couldn't accept the Wang clan's betrayal. This matter dealt a huge blow to him. It was even harder for him to accept than the betrayal of his trusted students and old acquaintances. The King of Song was completely disappointed in the Wang clan. When his grandfather was still alive, the King of Song still cared about their friendship and only stripped his father of his military authority. When his grandfather passed away, without the protection of the King of Song, King Qi began to suppress the Wang clan. In just a few short years, the once illustrious Wang clan completely withdrew from the Tang dynasty's bureaucracy. Without the proactive warmonger, the king of Song, there was no one who could contend against King Qi. As such, the Tang dynasty's strategy turned from hard to soft and inward. In the end, it led to the disaster that followed. It could be said that this incident was not only a huge disaster for the Wang clan, the king of Song, and even the entire imperial court. All three parties were losers in this incident. Even King Qi himself wasn't the final winner. The impact of this incident was so deep that Wang Chong remembered it clearly. The fate of the entire Wang clan and the entire imperial court changed from that moment. Even until his death, his father brooded over it. He said that his greatest mistake in his life was accepting Yao Guangyi's invitation and not explaining it clearly to the king of Song. Wang Chong remembered this incident clearly. In his previous life, Wang Chong was muddle-headed and refused to accept anything. He didn't have any feelings for this family. By the time he realized that he cherished this family and wanted to change anything, it was already too late. To Wang Chong, this was also a deep regret. In his previous life it was one thing, but in this life, since he knew the direction of this incident, Wang Chong couldn't ignore it no matter what. He had to stop this incident. However, Wang Chong couldn't tell his father about this. "You are still a child, so don't get involved in this matter. I have my own plans," Father Wang said calmly, but there wasn't much of an expression on his face. There was a rift between the ancestors of the Yao and Wang clan, but that was a matter of the previous dynasty. Furthermore, it had been a long time since then. As for him and Yao Guangyi, there wasn't much conflict between them. It wasn't that Father Wang didn't know about the matter between the King of Song and King Qi. He didn't want to meet them, but he was worried that they would fall out with one another. After all, there wasn't much conflict between the two of them. At the very most, if Yao Guangyi wanted to rope him in, he would just have to make his stand clear and reject him. This way, he would be able to resolve the issue once and for all. This was to prevent Yao Guangyi from continuing to pester him after his rejection this time around, which would be troublesome as well. Observing his father's expression, Wang Chong felt anxious. His father was a typical military man. He wasn't inferior to Yao Guangyi when it came to leading troops and killing enemies on the battlefield. However, in terms of scheming and political maneuvering, his father was far from Yao Guangyi's. The two of them weren't even on the same level. Yao Guangyi had seen through his father's character and intentionally set up such a trap. If his father still harbored the mindset of, "As long as I'm upright, I'm not afraid of anything," he might be caught off guard and fall into Yao Guangyi's hands. By then it would be too late for regrets. "Chong-er, since your father said so, you shouldn't say anything anymore. Hurry up and eat. No one knows a son better than his mother." Observing Wang Chong's expression, Madame Wang could tell what he was thinking with a single look. Thus, she hurriedly signaled him with her eyes. She knew her husband's personality too well. He hated discussing official matters during a meal. It was already a miracle that he was able to tolerate Wang Chong's words and not lose his temper during the meal. The words "father has his own plans" had already expressed his attitude. This matter had already been decided, and it was time for them to stop. If Wang Chong were to continue speaking, he might really incur Father Wang's wrath. Wang Chong felt anxious. How could he not understand his mother's intentions? However, this matter was no small matter. If things went wrong, everything here, including the hall, the entire Wang clan and Big Uncle's residence, would be reduced to ashes. The entire Wang clan would be swept out of the politics of the Tang dynasty. His father didn't know of Yao Guangyi's means, so he wasn't wary of him yet. However, Wang Chong had to remind him. Even if he were to infuriate his father and be punished, he had to do it. "Father, this isn't a small matter. I feel that we should inform the King of Song about this matter, and let him know about it in advance. That way it would be better." Wang Chong deliberated for a long time. After contemplating for a long time, he finally came up with a compromise and tactfully raised his suggestion. It wouldn't do to stop his father directly. His father wasn't a 3-year-old child. Being too stubborn would only anger him. Wang Chong could only think of a roundabout route. Instead of talking about Yao Guangyi, he would start from the King of Song. "There's no need for you to interfere in the matters of adults." Father Wang's expression was cold as he stood up from the table. "You guys eat first. I still have matters to attend to, so I'll take my leave first." After saying that, He turned around and left without finishing his meal. Mother Wang turned around and looked at Wang Chong with a reproachful gaze. Wang Chong could only sigh in his heart. He knew that it would be extremely difficult for him to win his father's trust with just one night's performance. But at the very least he didn't get angry. Wang Chong thought to himself. From the looks of it, this gathering ended on a sour note. However, Wang Chong was well aware that given his father's personality in the past, if he were to talk back to him like this, his father would have already flown into a rage. This time around, it was already not bad that his father only had a displeased expression on his face. From the looks of it, his previous words had more or less some effect. It wasn't completely useless. As long as his father could inform the king of Song in advance before his meeting with Yao Guangyi, then his efforts wouldn't be in vain. This matter had to be done by his father personally. Even if he did it for him, it wouldn't work. If I want to succeed in this matter, I'm afraid that Ma Zhou will be indispensable. Wang Chong was extremely worried. His father's personality was too stubborn. Once he had made a decision, he wouldn't change it easily. It was impossible for him to change his mind with just a few words. This kind of personality had caused him to suffer a lot in his previous life. As a result, he was used by his opponents. Since Wang Chong's probing during the meal had failed, he could only think of another way to deal with it. No matter what, he had to stop this matter. Chapter 5. In the back garden, Wang Chong sat on a craggy fake mountain deep in thought. He had been thinking for a very long time. The place where his father and Yao Guangyi met was called the Vast Crane Pavilion. Yao Guangyi was a cunning old fox and had long passed down a ban on guests in the Vast Crane Pavilion. At this moment, other than Yao Guangyi and King Qi's men, no one was allowed to enter. However, from the outside, the Vast Crane Pavilion was still filled to the brim with guests. And it was no different from how it usually was. Back then, his father was deceived by this facade and fell into Yao Guangyi's trap. Wang Chong knew that if he couldn't enter, it would be impossible for him to stop this disaster. The Vast Crane Pavilion was filled with experts arranged by Yao Guangyi, and it was impossible for him to barge in. He could only use his wits and not brute force. I've got it. Suddenly, Wang Chong's eyes lit up as he thought of a person. How could he have forgotten about this fellow? With this fellow, he would definitely be able to sneak into the Vast Crane Pavilion. However, just this alone wasn't enough. This won't do. The Vast Crane Pavilion is filled with experts and I alone won't be able to do it. I need a formidable expert to do it. At this point, Wang Chong's brow furrowed. He was a member of the family and he knew his own affairs well. If it was in his previous life, he wouldn't have to go through so much trouble. Regardless of how many experts Yao Guangyi had arranged for him, he would be able to defeat Yao Guangyi with just his exceptional cultivation. However, in this life he was only a 15-year-old child. With this bit of strength, how could he match up to the experts of the Yao residents who were as tough as tigers and wolves? By then, Yao Guangyi's men would be able to throw him out easily. It would be futile even if he barged into the pavilion. At this point, Wang Chong's frown deepened and the joy he felt a moment ago dissipated. It wasn't easy to find such an expert. Just as he was in a dilemma, Wang Chong suddenly heard the sound of footsteps. Wang Chong subconsciously raised his head and saw that not far away, a few guards were escorting his little sister, who was jumping around in the courtyard and playing around. Wang Chong was already used to seeing such a scene, but for some reason, it felt completely different in Wang Chong's eyes. Sigh, I'm so stupid. Suddenly, Wang Chong patted his head and laughed. Wasn't he carrying a lantern to look for a lantern? Since big brother and second brother weren't around, who in the entire Wang clan could be more suitable than little sister? Wasn't he being blinded by a leaf? He actually couldn't see the expert closest to him. Thinking of this, Wang Chong couldn't help but smile happily. In the Wang family, Wang Xiaoyao was a legend. It was true that she was only 10 years old, but she was extremely talented and had extraordinary strength. It was said that when he was 3 years old, he could already carry a large cauldron. Wang Chong didn't see it with his own eyes. But since even his mother said so, it couldn't be wrong. Wang Chong dared to bet that in the entire capital, including big brother and second brother, there probably wasn't anyone who could surpass her in terms of talent. As for her future potential, that was even more lacking. This was something that Wang Chong had witnessed personally in his previous life, so he couldn't be any clearer about it. He knew how terrifying his little sister's strength would be in the future. The reason why she possessed such terrifying strength was actually very simple. It was because his little sister was born with all of her meridians cleared, softening one's qi like a baby. These were the words of the Book of Tao. As everyone knew, everyone had all of their meridians cleared in their mother's womb. But after they were born, they breathed in the turbid air of the world, thus causing their meridians to be blocked, and they fell from a saint to a mortal. All of this happened in the instant that the first cry sounded. But his little sister was different. She was born with a unique constitution. After she was born, her meridians weren't blocked. Such a person was 1 in 10,000, 1 in 100,000, or even 1 in a million. Due to this reason, no matter what martial arts she cultivated, she was able to achieve twice the results with half the effort, far surpassing others. Immense strength was the direct manifestation of this talent. But it was a pity that his little sister was still too young, and her personality was too naive and stubborn. When she cultivated, she would spend 3 days fishing and 2 days drying the net. But even so, his little sister's current strength was still astonishing. She could compete with those geniuses who were 10 years older than her. In the Wang clan, his little sister was without a doubt the #1 expert. If he didn't make use of his little sister, the #1 expert of the clan, wouldn't he be giving up what was close at hand for what was far away? More importantly, even though she bore a grudge and hated being lied to, his little sister still trusted him. If he asked for her help, she would definitely be able to do it. Thinking of this, Wang Chong's body slid down from the fake mountain. "Little sister, come over." Wang Chong beckoned to her with a mischievous smile. "Big brother will bring you to a fun place." "Third brother, where are you bringing me?" The carriage rumbled, and his little sister peeked her head out of the window. Her eyes scanned the bustling city outside curiously. It was clear that her anger had dissipated, and all that was left was curiosity. After all, she was only a 10-year-old girl. Her movements were strictly restricted, and she wasn't allowed to go out as she pleased. It wasn't easy for her to sneak out to fool around, with her little brother behind her mother's back, and she felt extremely excited. Don't worry, you'll know soon enough." Wang Chong chuckled. "Remember our promise. Without my permission, you're not allowed to make a move. Otherwise, don't expect me to bring you out the next time." "Oh." His little sister nodded obediently, agreeing to it without any hesitation. She had absolute trust in her little brother. But soon, she thought of something and raised her fist in a threatening manner. "Little brother, you're not allowed to lie to me. Otherwise, you're dead." "Humph. Of course not. Why would I dare to lie to you?" Wang Chong broke out in cold sweat. He recalled his little sister's fearsome strength. Just a casual pinch was enough to kill him. If she were to go on a rampage, he might even lose half his life. "Yo, isn't that young Master Chong?" Just as they were speaking, a loud shout suddenly echoed. "He's here." Wang Chong stopped the carriage and a smile appeared on his lips. This was a tavern that he frequented. Since he was here, Ma Zhou and his gang should be here as well. Leading his little sister out of the carriage, Wang Chong saw a group of ruffian young men carrying bird cages and fanning themselves with flower fans standing in front of him. They seemed to have predicted his arrival, and they had been waiting for him here. "Yo, young Master Chong, I finally get to meet you." The young man leading the group carried a bone fan on his back. He had a square face and large ears, and on his right eyebrow, there was a striking mole. Upon seeing Wang Chong, Li immediately strode forward to welcome him with an enthusiastic expression. That person was Ma Zhou. "Young Master Chong, I heard that you were punished by your family and grounded. We brothers wanted to visit you long ago. However, the Wang family residence doesn't allow anyone to enter. We went a few times, but we returned empty-handed. Thus we could only give up. Young Master Chong, are you all right?" Ma Zhou immediately grabbed onto Wang Chong's hands and asked about his well-being. Those who didn't know would have thought that the two of them were extremely close. However, the disdain on Ma Zhou's face couldn't be concealed at all. "Humph, I didn't expect that fellow to be so good at acting." Wang Chong sneered coldly. "One's appearance comes from one's heart, and one's heart changes according to one's state of mind. In the past, He only thought that Ma Zhou's smile was sincere. However, looking at him now, he felt that he was an extremely arrogant person. In the depths of his heart, this fellow must have thought of him as a fool. It was laughable that he thought too simply of others in his previous life. He always thought that he would treat others with sincerity, and they would treat him with sincerity. Yet he fell for the tricks of these scum. As for Ma Zhou's words, it was the greatest joke in the world. Wang Chong went out to ask around, and in the past few weeks, not even a single mosquito had dared to approach. Needless to say, Ma Zhou and his gang. "Are you waiting for me here?" Wang Chong asked calmly. Ma Zhou was taken aback. There seemed to be something wrong with young Master Chong today. In the past, he was extremely passionate when he met him. Why did he seem to be much colder today? However, he might have been overthinking it. Ma Zhou didn't pay it any heed. "Young Master Chong, didn't we hear that you are out of seclusion? We specially waited here to welcome young Master Chong back. Brothers, don't you think so?" Ma Zhou gestured to the people behind him. The crowd behind him responded and burst into laughter, as though they were watching a circus. "Young Master Chong, how is it? Shall we go?" Ma Zhou turned around and chuckled. The disdain in his eyes deepened. This lad from the Wang family was too gullible. With just a few words he managed to fool him. Yet this lad still thought that he was loyal. He didn't know that everyone treated him as a fool. If there was money, everyone would play with it. If there was trouble, he would shoulder it. Where in the world could one find such a sucker? As for welcoming him back, even though it was to welcome Wang Chong back. However, Ma Zhou didn't think that he would fork out the money. Ever since he started hanging out with Wang Chong, Ma Zhou had never paid a single cent. Honestly speaking, Wang Chong had been in seclusion for so many days. His brothers also felt uncomfortable living with him. Thinking about it, they really missed him a little. Without such a young master, who would clean up their mess and pay the bills for them? At this point, Ma Zhou felt even more gleeful. "Pa!" Just as he was feeling gleeful, a slap suddenly came flying over. "Pa!" Ma Zhou staggered. Half of his face was swollen, and 5 clear finger marks could be seen on it. In an instant, the entire place fell silent. Everyone was stunned by this slap. What was going on? Ma Zhou suffered a slap. How was this possible? "You hit me?" Ma Zhou held onto his burning cheeks as he stared at Wang Chong in a daze. His head was spinning and he couldn't react for a while. Even now, he was still in a daze. Wang Chong had actually slapped him. How was this possible? Even Ma Zhou was in such a state. The others were even worse. All the rich kids stared at each other. They were so shocked that an egg could fit in their mouths. Wang Chong actually slapped Ma Zhou? How was this possible? In this world, anyone could slap Ma Zhou. But Wang Chong was the only one who couldn't do it. One had to know that the person closest to Wang Chong was Ma Zhou. If not, Ma Zhou wouldn't dare to fool him like that. But now Wang Chong actually slapped Ma Zhou on the street. Everyone was shocked by this fact. No one knew what happened. "It's mine." Wang Chong stared at Ma Zhou and smiled. The only normal person here was him. "Ma Zhou, I treated you as a brother in the past, but you treated me as a fool. You can't possibly think that I don't know anything, right?" Wah! An uproar broke out. Their mouths opened even wider in shock. Was this still the simple-minded and easily fooled Wang Chong they knew? Was he still the same Wang Chong who was used by everyone and treated as a fool by everyone? These words didn't seem like something he would say. Wasn't this change a little too drastic? Everyone was stunned by Wang Chong's change. They felt a sense of guilt as though their scheme was seen through. Could this Wang Chong have been feigning weakness in the past? What? Ma Zhou, he is Ma Zhou. Just as everyone was panicking, a strange cry suddenly rang out. The Wang family's little sister frowned and her almond-shaped eyes widened in anger. She didn't know at the start, but upon hearing that this fellow was the culprit who harmed her brother, how could she hold herself back? Chapter 6. His little sister didn't just say it, she also wanted to do it. Wang Chong knew how terrifying her ability was. If she really attacked him out of anger, Ma Zhou would probably die immediately. His plan would then be foiled. "Little sister, don't be anxious." Wang Chong patted his little sister's shoulder and comforted her. "Let me handle this kind of small matter. Don't forget that we have an agreement. You won't disobey me, right?" "Ah." His little sister was disheartened and felt conflicted. She knew that it was this bastard named Ma Zhou who caused her brother to be grounded for 7 days. With her personality, she would have killed anyone who dared to harm her family. However, she couldn't disobey her brother's words. All right then. His little sister lowered her head and chose to obey. Only then did Wang Chong smile. This was the little sister in his memory. She was exactly the same as in his previous life. Ma Zhou, I can let bygones be bygones. However, you used my name to kidnap innocent women in broad daylight. Don't tell me that you think I don't know about it? Wang Chong said calmly and glanced at Ma Zhou. His gaze was bone-chilling. For some reason, everyone felt terrified and uneasy. It was as if he was another person. This matter is serious. This kid actually knew about it. God damn it, who told him about it? Today Wang Chong gave everyone a feeling that he was enlightened. He actually understood everything. The group of hedonistic sons all retreated. They felt that today's matter wouldn't end well. On the other side, Ma Zhou's face was filled with astonishment, surprise, and disbelief. However, he slowly calmed down. Even his right hand that was covering his face relaxed. Honestly speaking, Ma Zhou didn't expect Wang Chong to suddenly become so shrewd. It was as if nothing could be hidden from him. All the things that he did in the past were seen through by him. Wang Chong, you asked for it. Ma Zhou's face darkened as he said viciously. Wang Chong shouldn't have slapped him in the face in front of so many brothers. How could he keep his face? He shouldn't have exposed this matter. If he was smart, he would have let it go even if he knew these things. There was no need for him to say it out loud. At most, they would just not interact with each other in the future. Wouldn't it be better for everyone to feign civility? Did he think that just by calling him young Master Chong, he would be the head of the crowd? Ma Zhou looked down at Wang Chong coldly. He did not hide the mockery and disdain in his eyes at all. It's over. Ma Zhou is angry. What a joke. Hide further away. Ma Zhou getting angry is no joke. Last time, Ma Zhou crippled a nobleman who was at the imbued bone realm. Wang Chong is even worse, and he is only at the blood imbuement realm. Now that he has angered Ma Zhou, he will suffer. After the initial surprise and astonishment, the group of young thugs had gloating looks on their faces, as if they were watching a good show. Ma Zhou was a jerk, but the crowd wasn't fools. If he wasn't capable, who would acknowledge him as their head? This fellow had never been a pushover. Everyone could already foresee the scene of Wang Chong being pummeled by Ma Zhou. At this moment Ma Zhou was displeased, extremely displeased. The young master of the Wang clan was only a puppet under him. Yet this puppet wanted to ride on his head to show off. How could Ma Zhou stand it? Ka-cha-cha, the crisp sound of bones cracking echoed from Ma Zhou's body. Deep within his bones, blood flowed as though a stream, and a powerful force burst forth from the depths of his bones. Imbuement realm. Ma Zhou's cultivation had reached origin energy tier 4. And he had reached the level of absorbing origin energy to cleanse his bones. Compared to a young master like Wang Chong, who was still at the blood imbuement realm, he was much stronger. Since you don't know how to appreciate my kindness, you are really asking for trouble. Ma Zhou laughed savagely. Is that so? Wang Chong sneered coldly. There was no hesitation in his eyes. Ma Zhou was taken aback. For some reason, the current Wang Chong gave him an extremely bizarre feeling, as though he had turned into a different person. Without any time to think, Ma Zhou stepped forward, and as swift as lightning he punched forward. Kacha, the crisp sound of bones cracking echoed. Ma Zhou seemed to have heard the sound of bones shattering on Wang Chong's body. However, before Ma Zhou could rejoice, exclamations sounded from the surroundings. Mama! Young Master Ma, your nose! The surrounding villains widened their eyes in horror as they stared at Ma Zhou's nose, as though there was something terrifying on it. What's wrong with my nose? Ma Zhou was astonished. The moment this thought flashed across his mind, he felt a heart-wrenching pain. His nostrils felt as though they were on fire, and all sorts of flavors, sweet, sour, bitter, and spicy, gushed out together with his blood. My nose! Ma Zhou let out a heart-wrenching scream of agony. His voice was sharp and shrill, sending goosebumps down everyone's spine. In that instant, Ma Zhou finally understood that the cracking sound he heard didn't come from Wang Chong, but his own nose. The bones around the nose were the softest part of a human's body, as well as the weakest part. After suffering a punch to his nose, Ma Zhou's entire body went limp. Clutching his nose, he kneeled onto the floor like a prawn, losing the ability to fight. Ma Zhou couldn't understand how he managed to endure that punch. Even Ma Zhou himself couldn't understand it, needless to say the others. In the eyes of the crowd, they only saw Wang Chong taking half a step to the side, causing Ma Zhou's punch to miss. At the same time, Wang Chong's punch landed on Ma Zhou's nose. To hell with it. This wasn't the first time they were together with Wang Chong, so they were well aware of his capabilities. An Origin Energy Tier 3 Blood Imbuement Realm Cultivator actually beat up an Origin Energy Tier 4 Marrow Imbuement Realm Cultivator? Something wasn't right. He sure is ruthless. Looking at Ma Zhou's pitiful state, everyone felt their scalps go numb. A few of them even scampered away. Ma Zhou, these 2 slaps are for you on behalf of those who were bullied by you in the past. Wang Chong grabbed Ma Zhou's hair and slapped him twice. A person like Ma Zhou only had brute strength, but in terms of technique and awareness, he was far from matching up to him. Even if you want to dominate the market, there should be a limit to it. To dare to snatch a woman. Don't you know that I hate such things the most? Papa, 2 slaps landed on Ma Zhou's face. These 2 slaps caused Ma Zhou's teeth to fall out. Little brother, well done. Well done. The 10-year-old little sister cheered excitedly by the side, venting her anger. Even though she couldn't do it herself, it was satisfying to watch this little brother deal with this fellow. After 2 punches, Wang Chong felt the anger in his heart dissipating slightly. Be it in this life or his previous life, what Wang Chong hated the most were those who bullied women and children. Wang Chong couldn't tolerate Ma Zhou using his name to do such things. It was even more humiliating for him to be grounded by his parents for such a reason. Thus, Wang Chong's blows were heavy and ruthless. Ah! Bastard, you will pay the price for this. Ma Zhou's eyes reddened and his body trembled in anger. Pa! Wang Chong kicked Ma Zhou's crotch, and there seemed to be the sound of something shattering. The latter howled in pain as he clutched his crotch and fell to the ground. His face turned pale and cold sweat dripped down his forehead like rain. Only the sound of him inhaling could be heard, but not the sound of him exhaling. Ma Zhou, don't think that I don't know. You colluded with Yao Feng. Yao Feng made use of you to deal with me. Do you really think that you are someone important? Wang Chong walked over and glared at Ma Zhou coldly. Ma Zhou was just a small character without any background. If he wasn't instructed by anyone, how could he dare to make a fool out of him? Just by looking at Ma Zhou's shocked expression, Wang Chong knew that he had guessed correctly. In the entire capital, the only person who was driven by such desires was Yao Feng. Even though Yao Feng didn't have any grudges with him, he did have conflicts with his big brother and second brother. Ma Zhou could only listen to his orders. Wang Chong, don't be too gleeful. Why are you acting so arrogant in front of me? If you have the capabilities, go and show off before young Master Yao. Yes, so what if I used your name to snatch a woman? All of this was done under Yao Gongzi's orders. If you have a problem, go straight for him. Ma Zhou straightened his neck and bellowed furiously. He Ma Zhou, do you think that I don't dare to do so? Wang Chong was waiting for these words. If he wanted to enter the vast crane pavilion, he would have to rely on this brother to lead the way. If you have the capabilities, then lead the way. I would like to see what Yao Feng has to say about this matter. Wang Chong sneered coldly. Hua! Ma Zhou didn't know where he got the strength from, but he abruptly stood up. A cold glint flashed across his eyes, revealing a bone-deep venom. Wang Chong, if you were a man, you would follow me. Whoever doesn't dare to go is the crow. Turtle. King. 8. Dan. If he didn't exact vengeance, he wouldn't be a man. Since he wasn't able to deal with Wang Chong, he would let Yao Feng deal with him. Things were smoother than Wang Chong had imagined. With Ma Zhou leading the way, Wang Chong soon arrived at the vast crane pavilion. At the heart of the bustling city, there was an octagonal pavilion with overhanging eaves and arches. It was a majestic sight. The pavilion had a total of 4 floors. Red gilded lanterns hung down from the corners of the octagonal pavilion, creating a beautiful sight. Upon seeing this familiar building, Wang Chong couldn't help but feel moved. In his previous life, when he returned to this vast crane pavilion, it was already in ruins. The corners were filled with dust and cobwebs. It was no longer as prosperous and lively as it was in the past. This was the turning point of the Wang clan's fate. In his previous life, this vast crane pavilion remained on his mind until his death. It was also because of this reason that Wang Chong returned to this place time and time again. He stopped before the ruins of the vast crane pavilion to look at it and reminisce about the past. If not for that matter, everything would have been different, Wang Chong thought. Now that everything had returned to the starting point, he finally had a chance to stop everything on behalf of his father and save everything. Just that, his father was oblivious to all of this. Wang Chong, follow me in if you have the guts. On the other side, Ma Zhou had already finished his negotiation with the guards in the vast crane pavilion. He angrily beckoned for Wang Chong to enter. The vast crane pavilion had imposed a ban on guests. Other than the men of the Yao residence and King Qi, no one was allowed to enter. However, Ma Zhou was different. He was Yao Guangyi's man and he had met the guards of the Yao residence before. If there was one person that Wang Chong could enter through, it could only be Ma Zhou. Why are you afraid? Ma Zhou said coldly, afraid that Wang Chong would go back on his words. Cut the crap, lead the way. Wang Chong said coldly. Judging from the time, his father should have already entered the vast crane pavilion. Whether he could succeed or not would depend on today. Taking in a deep breath, Wang Chong led his little sister into the vast crane pavilion. Only after entering the vast crane pavilion would one realize how bustling and majestic the tavern was. There were more than 200 seats on every floor, and there wasn't an empty seat. Wang Chong could clearly tell that these people were the men of Yao Guangyi and King Qi. There were also a few who had followed the king of Song in the past. In the matter of deceiving his father, these men who betrayed the king of Song played a huge role. Yao Guangyi had put in a lot of effort into this matter. However, Ma Zhou was clearly unaware of this. He didn't see any difference in this place either. He only urged Wang Chong, afraid that he would go back on his words and back out at the last moment. Let's go. Let's go. Lad, it can't be that you are backing out. After suffering such a huge loss, how could Ma Zhou be willing to let the matter rest? He was only willing to make use of Yao Feng to teach Wang Chong a lesson. What are you rushing me for? Do you think that I'm afraid? Wang Chong revealed a look as though he had been provoked, but he was sneering coldly in his heart. It was fortunate that he had Ma Zhou on his side. If that fellow knew what was going on in the vast crane pavilion, he wouldn't have dared to bring him here even if he was given 10 guts. Flinging his robe, Wang Chong followed Ma Zhou up. Chapter 7. In a private room on the 3rd floor of the vast crane pavilion, a group of wealthy young gongzi were gathered together. They were toasting to the elegantly dressed young man seated at the seat of honor. Young Master Yao, please. Young Master Yao, let me offer you a toast. The young masters spoke one after another, and many of them were full of compliments. It seemed that they were all following the latter's lead. Young Master Yao had an elegant manner of speech, and was one of the new nobles in the capital. In addition, his family background was deep and profound. Even among the young masters, he was outstanding. Everyone, there is no need to be so polite. Today I Yao will be the host. Everyone, please enjoy yourselves. The young man in the brocade robe had his sleeves fluttering in the wind. He held a glass of wine in his hand and bowed back to the crowd. His expression was tranquil and his behavior was natural and unrestrained. He displayed an extraordinary demeanor and temperament. Even among the young masters, he was like a crane among a flock of chickens. The capital's Yao residence was renowned for its military prowess, and was a direct descendant of King Qi. As the eldest son of the Yao family, young noble Yao Feng would inherit the position and influence of the Yao clan in the future. Thus, even though this was the first time young Master Yao Feng had invited them over, they still welcomed him with open arms. Everyone toasted each other, and after a few toasts, the atmosphere was extraordinarily lively. On the seat of honor in the private room, Yao Feng narrowed his eyes as he discreetly scanned the surroundings. Joy filled his heart as he nodded his head. Today was his big day. Making use of his father's prestige and the reputation of the Yao residence, Yao Feng had gathered all of the prestigious young masters in the capital to the vast crane pavilion. This was the first gathering of the crowd. To Yao Feng, this was also a chance for him to win over the hearts of the crowd and establish his prestige. As long as he could win the hearts of these noble young masters, he would definitely have a place among the leaders of the young masters in the capital. More importantly, his father had already promised him that as long as he could subdue these noble young masters and build his own team, he would gradually let go of his power and let them take over the family business. This was no different from confirming his position as the family's successor. Thus, to Yao Feng, this gathering was extremely important. The atmosphere of the banquet was harmonious, and Yao Feng could tell that everyone was trying to fawn on him. As the young master of the Yao residence, he was still a person of great respect. But that wasn't enough. Yao Feng decided to try to rope him in. Everyone, those who are able to sit here are my brothers. If there's anything you need in the future, just let me know. Young master, Ma Zhou has brought 2 people here. The wooden door to the private room opened and a manager of the vast crane pavilion rushed in, interrupting Yao Feng's words. What's going on? Why are you so nervous? Yao Feng frowned. Even though he was displeased, he did not reveal it easily. Didn't I tell you not to disturb me at this time? Tell Ma Zhou to come back later. Yao Feng said solemnly. I said it. The steward stammered and hesitated before saying, But, he has already barged in. As soon as he finished speaking, the room fell silent. Initially, Yao Feng was just a little unhappy. However, after hearing those words, he couldn't help but feel a little angry. Ma Zhou was just an insignificant pawn under him. If such an important gathering were to be disrupted by a nobody like him, Yao Feng would definitely not let him off. Young Master Yao, how about? A young master dressed in luxurious clothes asked tentatively. No need. Yao Feng didn't wait for him to finish his words and rejected him without hesitation. Everyone, a small matter has cropped up. Yao Feng has been rude. Manager Zhang passed this to him. Tell him that I will meet him personally after the gathering. As Yao Feng spoke, he flicked his wrist and tossed a golden token over. Yao Feng rarely used his token, unless it was an important matter. If Ma Zhou was tactful, he should understand his intentions upon seeing this token. If he didn't know how to appreciate his kindness and spoil his plans, then he shouldn't be blamed. Young Master Yao, why go through so much trouble? We can just come in directly. A cold sneer sounded from outside. With a loud bang, the door was pushed open and Wang Chong barged in forcefully. Wang Chong. Upon seeing the figure barging in, Yao Feng's body trembled and he couldn't believe his eyes. He didn't expect that the person who barged in would be someone he had never expected. Why, young Master Yao, do you not welcome me? Wang Chong smiled. He was extremely satisfied with Yao Feng's shocked expression. Without waiting for Yao Feng's instructions, he pulled out a chair opposite Yao Feng and sat down. Seeing Wang Chong's actions, Yao Feng's eyelids twitched. Suppressing the displeasure in his heart, he smiled and said, Young Master Wang, what are you saying? You are a guest and I don't think that I won't welcome you. After all, he was a scion of a prestigious clan. His actions were magnanimous and elegant, far surpassing that of an ordinary clan. At this moment, even Wang Chong couldn't help but feel impressed. In his previous life, it wasn't without reason that Yao Feng was one of the leaders of the scions in the capital. At the very least, in terms of shrewdness and demeanor, ordinary people couldn't be compared to him. However, it was a pity that Wang Chong was here to cause trouble. Furthermore, the current Yao Feng was far from his previous life's illustrious achievements and status. Hey, little sister, come over. Someone is treating us here and there are so many delicious dishes. Your third brother has never lied to you. Without turning back, Wang Chong beckoned behind him. Is that true? Following a clear and tender voice, under everyone's astonished gazes, a round little face popped in from the wooden door behind Wang Chong. Her large eyes blinked as she stared at the room curiously. Soon, her gaze landed on the table filled with delicacies. Why, it's true! The little girl exclaimed in astonishment. She walked over the doorsill and sat beside Wang Chong. Grabbing a fragrant chicken drumstick, she began wolfing it down. As for the guests in the hall, they were completely ignored by her. She couldn't be bothered with them. Since her brother said that it was fine, then it was fine. She couldn't be bothered to think about anything else. Undelicious. Really delicious. The little sister of the Wang family was born with a huge appetite. Even though she was small, her appetite wasn't small. In just a few mouthfuls she finished the entire chicken drumstick. As she ate, she clicked her tongue. The bones that she spat out were clean, and even the bone marrow was chewed into powder. The dishes of the vast crane pavilion were exquisite in color, aroma, and taste. Steaming, boiling, roasting, broiling, and broiling were famous in the capital. Even though it was a delicacy at home, it couldn't be compared to the exquisite dishes of the vast crane pavilion. The little sister of the Wang family was delighted. She felt that her brother was indeed a good person. Thus, she opened up her appetite and ate with gusto. Her hands and mouth were covered in oil. It had only been a short moment since she entered the room, but she had already overturned 2 plates. Yao Feng's eyelids twitched at the sight of her appetite. He didn't mind these plates. After all, the vast crane pavilion belonged to his family, and it wasn't a problem for him to eat as much as he wanted. However, these 2 siblings were clearly here to cause trouble. If he were to allow the little sister of the Wang family to eat by the side of the table, who would be able to move his chopsticks? It was only a matter of time before this gathering was ruined. In truth, Yao Feng could already feel the change in the atmosphere. It was one thing if it was any other time. However, this was the gathering of the Gongzi in the capital that he had recruited. It was an extremely important gathering for him, so how could he allow it to be ruined just because of these 2 kids? Your younger sister sure is straightforward and adorable. Wang Gongzi, those who come are guests. How about this? I, Yao Feng, will be the host and arrange another table for Wang Gongzi in the vast crane pavilion. All of your food and drinks will be on me. What do you think? Yao Feng didn't reveal the slightest hint of displeasure. On the contrary, he continued to talk cheerfully and tried to persuade the other party. It was as though he didn't know that Wang Chong and his younger sister were here to cause trouble. In the eyes of all the young masters present, they were all secretly in awe of his demeanor. Just from this point alone, it could be seen that the Yao residence wasn't an ordinary clan in the capital. Wang Chong had been observing the changes in Yao Feng's expression, and the twitching of Yao Feng's eyes couldn't escape his notice. He knew that his strategy was working. Rather than enjoying it alone, why not enjoy it together? How can it be as lively as here when I'm drinking alone in my room? I heard that Yao Gongzi is a magnanimous person, so you shouldn't mind adding a seat for us siblings in your room, right? It wasn't easy for Wang Chong to negotiate with him. It wasn't easy for him to make use of Ma Zhou to sneak into the vast crane pavilion. If he were to be scolded by Yao Feng's words, wouldn't his efforts go to waste? I would like to see how long you can tolerate this. Wang Chong sneered coldly in his heart. He was here to provoke Yao Feng. Regardless of how scheming this Yao Gongzi was, regardless of how tolerant he was, Wang Chong was determined to make him explode. Hearing Wang Chong's words, Yao Feng's expression finally changed. He tried to persuade Wang Chong, but Wang Chong refused to budge. It was clear that he didn't want to leave. Wang Gongzi, if I didn't remember wrongly, I didn't invite you here, right? I'm not a petty person, but I have no choice but to invite you to leave. Yao Feng's eyes were burning with rage. Hey, of course I know that you didn't invite me, but I can't not come. Otherwise, wouldn't I be disrespecting Yao Gongzi? Wang Chong sneered coldly. After which, he grabbed a wine bottle in front of a guest, uncorked it, tasted it nonchalantly and praised, "Good wine." Even though Yao Feng was a cultured person, his eyelids twitched violently under Wang Chong's provocation. What do you mean by I didn't invite you but you can't not come? Do I, Yao Feng, need you to give me face? If not for the fact that there were so many scions here, why would Yao Feng waste his breath on a child like him? He would have chased him out long ago. Ma Zhou, you bastard. How dare you bring him here? I'll skin you alive. Yao Feng was infuriated as well. He knew that he had never interacted with the youngest son of the Wang clan, so it was impossible for the latter to know what he had done. For Wang Chong and his sister to come here, it could only be because that bastard Ma Zhou had leaked the news. However, this wasn't the time to pursue this matter. Wang Chong, I'll ask you one last time. Do you really want to go against me? Yao Feng asked sternly. It was meaningless to talk about leaving or giving him face. Anyone with a discerning eye could tell that Wang Chong was here to mess with him. Humph, Yao Feng, this is called an eye for an eye. Wang Chong threw the wine cup in his hand and it shattered into pieces on the floor. There was no point in saying anything anymore. This was the true meaning of revealing the dagger. At this point, the atmosphere of the banquet turned tense. Even the stupidest person could tell that these two siblings were here for Yao Feng. They were intentionally trying to make him unhappy. However, there was one thing that the crowd didn't understand. What was the background of these two for them to dare to go against Yao Feng? One must know that the Yao residence wasn't an ordinary clan in the capital. Wang Chong? You are from the Wang clan? A shocked exclamation sounded. A scion at the banquet finally reacted and recognized Wang Chong's identity. That's right. Wang Chong's reply was straightforward. Upon hearing this answer, the faces of everyone in the room changed. Could it be that this pair of siblings dared to go against Yao Feng and disregard the Yao residents? To think that they were from the Wang clan. It was one thing if it was just Wang Yan. The Tang dynasty was flourishing with martial arts, and there were many generals like him. But in the capital, everyone knew that there was still an old master above the Wang clan. That person was the one who truly made people feel apprehensive. So you are the descendant of Duke Jiao. Pardon me. May I know if the old master is doing well? I am from the Wei clan in the capital. My father, Wei Li, was taken care of by the old master and he has always been thinking about him. If young Master Wang is returning, please tell the old master that Wei Li hopes that the old master can pay a visit when he is free. The gazes that the crowd directed at Wang Chong and his sister immediately changed. They were filled with respect. In the capital, the two words Duke Jiao represented a unique status. Even Wang Chong and his sister had changed. Initially, they thought that this was just an ordinary farce. However, if the reclusive Duke Jiao of the Four Quarters Embassy wanted to go against the Yao clan, everything would be different. Chapter 8. Yao Gongzi, I suddenly remembered that I have something on. I'll be taking my leave first. Yao Gongzi, let's end the banquet here. We'll meet again another day if we have time. After exchanging some pleasantries, a noble Gongzi stood up and left, following which more and more people followed suit. Yao Feng's face turned steely. Eventually, it turned as black as the bottom of a wok. The reason why he was so careful was because he hoped that he wouldn't alarm the crowd and persuade the Wang Chong brothers to leave. Yet, in the end he still failed at the last step. It wasn't easy for him to create a gathering, but it was forcefully disrupted by the two siblings. Even though they said that they would meet again, Yao Feng knew that it would be a miracle if they did so. Since these people had caught the scent, they wouldn't have anything to do with him for the time being. Wang Chong, since the two of you don't wish to leave, then don't. Men, take them down. I would like to see what the Wang clan has to say about this. Yao Feng's eyes blazed with rage. Slamming the table, he stood up abruptly. Boom! A strong gust of wind blew. Two guards of the Yao residence who were on standby outside the door barged in with vicious expressions. Without saying a word, the two of them stepped over the door and with their fingers spread open like eagle claws, they pounced on the siblings, Wang Chong and Wang Xiaoyao. The two of them were agile and experienced. With a single look, one could tell that they were from the military. Furthermore, they were using the most advanced techniques in the military. Using this technique to lock the shoulder blades and pierce the lute, if the siblings were to be caught, they would definitely suffer. Little sister, do it. Little sister, do it. Sensing danger, Wang Chong bellowed. He had an agreement with his little sister to restrict her from making a move. Even when they were dealing with Ma Zhou, he didn't allow her to make a move. However, at this moment, he didn't hesitate any longer and allowed her to move freely. The two guards of the Yao residence moved swiftly. In the blink of an eye, the moment they heard Wang Chong's voice, the little sister of the Wang family moved. Crack! No one knew how she did it. With the crisp sound of bones cracking, the first Yao residence guard screamed in agony as he knelt on the floor. His left palm was bent at an odd angle, twisting towards the back of his palm. The second guard's fate was even worse. He spat out a mouthful of blood, and before he could even get close, he was sent flying like a kite with a broken string. With a rumble, he crashed into the wall, creating a huge hole and flew out. In just a split second, the battle was already over. On the other hand, the Wang family's little sister was still standing on the table with an unfinished drumstick in her hand. Her hands and mouth were covered in oil. Silence. The whole place was dead silent. Shock flashed across Yao Feng's eyes. The others were even more so. No one would have thought that the young body on the table would actually contain such majestic power. The two well-trained guards of the Yao residence couldn't even withstand a single blow from her, and were completely crushed. Thump thump thump. A few guests who were sitting very close to the Wang family's little sister subconsciously took a step back, fear in their eyes. It's too scary. How can she possess such frightening strength? If I were to receive that punch, I probably wouldn't be able to withstand it. How can a little girl who isn't even 10 years old be so fearsome? The guards of the Yao residence are all elites. If I didn't see it with my own eyes, I wouldn't believe it even if I were to be beaten to death. That everyone who was still in the room felt a deep shock. There were so many martial arts competitions in the capital every day, but none of them could compare to the strength that this 10-year-old girl had displayed in that instant. Whoever dares to hurt my brother, I'll beat him to death. The Wang family's little sister stood on the table. She had 2 pigtails on her head, and her eyes were wide open in anger. Even though she was young and delicate, no one dared to underestimate her at this moment. Well done. Wang Chong was overjoyed and he secretly gave her a thumbs up. As expected of the #1 expert of the Wang clan, she was exactly as he remembered. Even though she slacked off every day and was lazy to the bone, there was nothing she could do about her astounding talent. Even though she didn't know any of the moves, her strength and reflexes made it easy for her to deal with the guards of the Yao residence. Yao Feng, I'm sorry. I'm afraid that you won't be able to do anything to us. Wang Chong added fuel to the fire as he sneered coldly at Yao Feng. Bastard! Take them down. Yao Feng flew into a rage. His body trembled under Wang Chong's provocation. To think that the elites of the Yao residence couldn't even defeat a little girl. If this matter were to spread, the Yao residence would lose all its face. Even though the banquet couldn't be held, the Wang Chong siblings still had to be taken down. After that, he would go to the Wang clan to interrogate them. Boom! Yao Feng waved his hands and this time, 4 experts of the Yao residence attacked simultaneously. The 4 of them had their temples bulging. In terms of cultivation, they were much stronger than the 2 that the Wang family's little sister defeated. If they still couldn't take them down, the Yao clan's face would truly be swept to the ground. However, this time Wang Chong didn't just sit there and wait for his death. Almost at the same instant when Yao Feng sent out the 4 experts from the Yao residence, Wang Chong pointed his finger at Yao Feng and bellowed, "Little sister, capture him. To shoot a man, first shoot the horse. To capture the bandits, first capture the ringleader." Wang Chong didn't forget his motive for coming here. What was the point of defeating a few guards of the Yao residence? Even if he defeated all of them, it would be meaningless. Capturing Yao Feng was the most important matter at hand. Since Yao Feng had already made his move, there was no need for Wang Chong to hold back anymore. Boom! Boom! The Wang family's little sister displayed her astonishing speed and strength. Pong pong pong. The 4 experts of the Yao residence were sent flying in a few seconds. The Wang family's little sister leaped over a table and headed straight for Yao Feng Gongzi. Audacious! Yao Feng stood upright and a cold glint flashed across his eyes. He was thoroughly enraged by the siblings Wang Chong and Wang Xiaoyao. With a flick of his robe, a powerful shockwave rippled within a 5 chi radius. Wang Chong stood in the doorway, separated by an entire table, but he could still feel the terrifying pressure of this storm. Thump thump thump. He subconsciously took several steps back, his heart shivering. Pung! Almost at the same time, the Wang family's little sister and Yao Feng's iron fists, one small and one big, collided fiercely in the air. Boom! A violent wind blew in the room and it was as though a bolt of lightning had exploded in midair. Dang dang dang! Yao Feng's body staggered and he retreated 3 steps. At the same time, the Wang family's little sister also staggered and took half a step back. Humph! Where do you siblings think this is? Do you really think that no one can deal with you? Yao Feng's face paled. He was infuriated by the Wang Chong siblings. Those who were able to stay here weren't outsiders. At this moment, there was no need for Yao Feng to maintain his composure. Men, everyone follow me. Whoever captures this pair of siblings will be rewarded with 1,000 gold taels and a set of battle armor. Before he could finish his words, Yao Feng's body flashed and he dashed forward. On his left and right, everyone's spirits were lifted, and they all rushed out at the same time. Even the Scions who hadn't made a move previously pounced forward. In the Tang dynasty, the name of Duke Jiu was deafening. However, it was a pity that not everyone had such a choice. The clans behind them were all tied tightly to the Yao clan. If Yao Feng were to be humiliated, they wouldn't be any better off. Not good. Wang Chong's mind shuddered, his heart sinking to the bottom of the lake. Despite all his calculations, Wang Chong didn't expect Yao Feng to be so powerful. Even though he wasn't at the peak of his potential in the future, Yao Feng still displayed a frightening talent in the martial way. Even with his little sister's strength, she wasn't able to subdue him. If he couldn't capture Yao Feng, then all of his plans would go to waste. In that instant, a strong sense of danger rose in his heart. Wang Chong knew that there was a huge flaw in his plan. If he couldn't resolve this crisis, then everything would be for naught. Yao Fengzi will help you. All the nobles' young masters attacked at the same time, pouncing over. At the same time, ding-ding sounds echoed in the entire floor. The experts that Yao Guangyi had stationed in the vast crane pavilion heard the commotion and pounced forward. Little brother! Wang Xiaoyao screamed. This was the first time she panicked against so many experts. Even though she was born with extraordinary strength, no matter how courageous she was still a 10-year-old girl. She had never faced such a situation before. Little sister, don't panic. Listen to me. At the crucial moment, Wang Chong suddenly calmed down. His voice seemed to contain a calming power. Hearing this voice, Wang Xiaoyao suddenly calmed down and confidence filled her heart. Tiger leaping mountain. When Wang Chong's voice sounded, the Wang family's little sister's body collapsed. Then she suddenly pounced forward. Ah! A scream of agony sounded. A guard of the Yao residence was kicked by the Wang family's little sister. The guard flew through the wall, smashed through the railing, and fell onto the street. Brother Wang, let me offer you a toast. In the underground level of the vast crane pavilion, the massive space was decorated with jewels. Two mountain-like figures sat facing each other as they toasted with each other. No one knew that the fate of the two great clans of the Tang dynasty would be decided here. Yao Guangyi sat upright in his robe, pouring wine into Wang Yan's cup. However, he didn't mention a single word about the purpose of this gathering. Brother Yao, the reason why you invited me to meet. Haha, Brother Wang, let's not talk about this first. We are stationed at the borders and it's rare for us to meet. Let's not talk about anything else, let's drink a cup or two first. Before Wang Yan could finish his words, Yao Guangyi interrupted him. Compared to a meticulous general like Wang Yan, even though they were both generals in the Bureau of Military Personnel, Yao Guangyi was more like a scholarly general and not a military general. Wang Yan frowned. His lips moved, but eventually he stopped himself. Wang Yan was a traditional military general. He had a straightforward personality and wasn't that scheming. This time Yao Guangyi suddenly invited him. Actually, Wang Yan guessed that Yao Guangyi wanted to recruit him. Before he came, Wang Yan had already made up his mind. As long as Yao Guangyi mentioned the purpose of the invitation, he would reject him and make his stand clear. However, even after 3 rounds of wine, Yao Guangyi didn't mention it at all. As such, Wang Yan didn't know where to start. Logically speaking, if Yao Guangyi wanted to recruit him, he should be more anxious than him. However, the situation wasn't like this at all. This made Wang Yan doubt himself. Could it be that his judgment was wrong? Could it be that Yao Guangyi wasn't trying to recruit him? Even though he felt that something was amiss, deep in his heart, Wang Yan sincerely hoped that Yao Guangyi was only looking for him to narrate his story. Regardless of whether it was the Yao family or the Wang family, they were the pillars of the empire. If they could work together for the empire, it would be a blessing for the Tang dynasty and the world. However, regardless of the situation, Wang Yan was fearless. A gentleman is magnanimous, a villain is sorrowful. As long as his heart was dignified, he sat upright and walked straight. No matter what Yao Guangyi planned, he had nothing to fear. Brother Yao, drink up. Wang Yan sat upright and raised his cup. Chapter 9. Who dares to cause a ruckus in the capital? Wang Yan put down his wine cup and his eyebrows shot up. His expression exuded authority. A general who fought on the battlefield could not tolerate sand in his eyes. Black is black, white is white. He hated those who disregarded the law and caused trouble. To think that someone would cause trouble in the vast crane pavilion in the capital, where the emperor resided. How audacious and lawless. As Wang Yan spoke, he raised his right hand, as though he was about to stand up to take a look. On the other side, Yao Guangyi's eyes narrowed and he hurriedly consoled, Brother Wang, you and I are both generals of the royal court. There's no need for us to interfere in such a small matter. Come, let's continue drinking. Let's not leave until we're drunk. As he spoke, he raised his wine cup, indicating for Wang Yan to ignore him and continue sitting down. What a joke. He had planned for this gathering for a long time. Even if it worked the first time, it might not work the second time. If he allowed Wang Yan to stand up and leave, all of his efforts would go to waste. Alright then. Even though Wang Yan was unwilling, upon seeing Yao Guangyi raise his wine cup, he could only sit down. Seeing that Wang Yan had given up on the idea of standing up to take a look, Yao Guangyi heaved a sigh of relief. He took the wine flask and continued to refill Wang Yan's cup. However, Yao Guangyi was perplexed. He knew the situation in the vast crane pavilion better than anyone else. Everyone in the pavilion was his men. How could a fight break out? Could it be that someone had barged in? For today's plan, he had already made sufficient preparations. The walls of the vast crane pavilion were impenetrable. Not even a mosquito could fly in. Who in the world would be so capable as to cause trouble in his vast crane pavilion? If I find out who it is that foiled my plans in the vast crane pavilion, I'll make sure that you suffer a fate worse than death. Yao Guangyi clenched his fists tightly and a sharp glint flashed across his eyes. The plan this time concerned the conflict between King Qi and the King of Song, as well as the overall situation of the royal court. The Yao clan was a subordinate of King Qi, and there was no way out of this matter. At this juncture, anyone who dared to foil his plans would be the Yao clan's nemesis. Given the Yao clan's current prestige in the royal court and King Qi's influence, it wouldn't be too difficult for them to destroy an entire clan. Brother Wang. Yao Guangyi thought about it and decided to continue comforting Wang Yan. This person had a straight and rigid personality. If they did not pacify him, he might still think of going down to check. The capital is an important place, and there are many hedonistic sons of aristocratic families and nobles. Fights are unavoidable, but it's fine as long as no one dies. Besides, the vast crane pavilion has its own experts as guards, so it won't take long for the situation to subside. Before he finished speaking, bang! Another figure flew out from the vast crane pavilion like a cannonball, crashing heavily onto the street. Then a third figure, a fourth figure. In that instant, Yao Guangyi's expression changed. Little sister. Hanging antelope horn. Little sister. Immortal crane combs its feathers. Monkeys plucking peaches. In a private room on the third floor of the vast crane pavilion, the Wang family's little sister pummeled the surrounding experts of the Yao residence and the young elites of the capital as though they were rubber balls. The Wang family's little sister's laziness was bone deep. When she was cultivating, she would slack off every day, and the moves she knew were pitifully few. Yet, she was extremely obedient to her brother. When that fearsome innate strength was paired with Wang Chong's knowledge and experience from his previous life, everything changed. In the entire room, other than Yao Feng, who was able to withstand 2 to 3 punches from the Wang family's little sister, no one else was able to withstand her blows. In just a short moment they were all beaten up. The walls of the private room were riddled with holes. The Wang family's little sister's godly strength sent them flying out of the vast crane pavilion like rubber balls onto the streets. Darn lass! The more Yao Feng fought, the more fearful and infuriated he became. His eyes reddened. Wang Chong had 2 siblings, one was 15 while the other was 10. Honestly speaking, he didn't think much of them. However, he didn't expect to meet with such a tough opponent from these 2 siblings. Not only did they ruin his party, but they also injured him. Don't worry about that lass. Capture Wang Chong. Capture that lad. Yao Feng bellowed. He could clearly see that if not for Wang Chong, this lass wouldn't be a match for them. Furthermore, looking at how obedient she was, as long as they captured Wang Chong, this lass would definitely surrender to them. Wang! Upon hearing Yao Feng's words, The 3 to 4 guards of the Yao residence abandoned the formidable Wang family's little sister and charged straight for Wang Chong. So Wang Chong slid in as though a loach. He swiftly dodged the attacks of the guards. He didn't have sufficient strength and he wasn't a match for any of the guards in the room. However, with his knowledge and experience from his previous life, it was more than enough for him to escape. Little sister, listen to me. End the battle quickly. Inverted golden bell. Wang Chong could clearly hear the clattering of wooden planks outside the door, and the footsteps of the soldiers were rushing over. These were the experts of the Yao clan. The vast crane pavilion was currently impenetrable, and there were experts planted by Yao Guang everywhere. Initially, these people didn't pay much attention to them. However, the moment they started fighting, their attention was immediately attracted. Under such circumstances, it wasn't suitable for a protracted battle. They had to end the battle quickly. Otherwise, by the time these people arrived, even if he and his little sister had 3 heads and 6 arms, they wouldn't be able to fend them off. All right. The Wang family's little sister replied loudly. The more she fought, the more excited she became. Her entire body was trembling with excitement. Even though she had fought before, she had never been so excited before. Those burly experts of the Yao residence, as well as Yao Feng and the others, seemed to be delivering themselves to her fists. She punched one person with each punch as though it was a game. In just a few breaths, half of the people in the room were subdued by her. Little sister. Now's the time, tail whip of the spirit snake. Wang Chong saw an opportunity and directed his little sister to attack Yao Feng. Yao Feng's eyes and ears were extremely alert. He had been paying attention to Wang Chong's movements from the start. Tail whip of the spirit serpent was the most basic move. It was impossible for Wang Chong to expect the Wang family's little sister to use this move against him. Boom! Yao Feng's legs shook and he stepped forward. With a meridian hammer, he took the initiative to attack the Wang family's little sister. Unexpectedly, the place where the hammer landed was empty. He actually missed his target. Not good. Yao Feng's heart sank. He immediately felt that something was amiss. The Wang family's little sister's tail whip of the spirit serpent seemed to be different from normal moves. Usually, only those who had yet to reach a certain level of mastery in their moves would have such a situation. Yao Feng had overestimated the Wang family's little sister's familiarity with her moves and underestimated the laziness of a 10-year-old girl. This mistake might have been fine during normal times, but at this moment it could be fatal. As this thought flashed across his mind, Yao Feng wanted to retreat, but it was already too late. A thin right leg circled around the back of Yao Feng's head and struck down ruthlessly. Boom! As though he was struck by an invisible hammer, Yao Feng's body fell to the ground and he smashed heavily into the floor like a wooden pillar. As though a raging gale had passed by, the floor was smashed into pieces by Yao Feng's body. Wang, the Wang family's little sister, viciously grabbed Yao Feng's hands and leaped onto his back, squeezing his bones so hard that cracking sounds could be heard. Young master. Yao Gongzi. Outside the private room, the sounds of footsteps came to an abrupt halt. A bunch of experts from the Yao residence rushed over, and the scions of the prestigious families who remained in the room stared at Wang Xiaoyao on Yao Feng's back in horror. Yao Feng Gongzi wasn't a weakling. On the contrary, his talent was astonishing. Even old master Yao Guangyi was full of praises for him. No one could have imagined that with Yao Feng's cultivation realm, he would fall in the hands of a young girl. Who dares to harm my Gongzi? After the initial panic, a large group of Yao residence experts rushed in from outside the door. Capture that lad. He is the young master of the Wang family. Use him to exchange for Gongzi. A scion of the Zhou clan pointed at Wang Chong and bellowed. Upon hearing those words, the Wang family's little sister flew into a rage. Whoever dares to harm my brother, I will kill this whatever young master of yours. The Wang family's little sister twisted her hand and the sound of bones shattering could be heard. She was born with incredible strength, and this move of hers almost twisted Yao Feng's entire arm off. Even though Yao Feng was a strong-willed person, he couldn't help but cry out in agony. His face turned pale and cold sweat broke out on his forehead from the pain. This Wang family's little sister was obedient to her brother's words, and was extremely concerned about him. If this lass were to really twist off his arm, his future would be ruined. Stop! All of you stop! Yao Feng was anxious and furious. He had a prideful personality and he possessed astounding talent. He had never suffered such a huge loss before. This time he was defeated in the hands of a few kids and he had lost all his face. Wang Chong, what are you trying to do? I don't believe that your Wang clan is so daring to lay a hand on me here. Tell me, no matter what happens today, I will demand an explanation from your Wang clan. I would like to see what your father, Wang Yan, has to say about this. Yao Feng's face was covered in blood and half of his head was smashed into the ground. He was both embarrassed and furious. Given his cultivation, there were only a few in the same generation who could defeat him. Yet, this little girl beside him was one of them. This made him feel both embarrassed and helpless. The Wang family's little sister might be young, but she was stronger than him. He had no choice but to admit defeat. However, after suffering such a huge loss, he couldn't accept it. Even if he couldn't defeat this little lass, given the Yao clan's background and influence, it was still possible for them to deal with the Wang clan behind Wang Chong and Wang Xiaoyao. You really don't know? Wang Chong narrowed his eyes and looked at Yao Feng with a deep gaze. However, looking at Yao Feng's confused expression, he was certain that Yao Feng really didn't know about this matter. When Yao Guangyi dealt with his father Wang Yan, other than a small number of people, he even hid it from his own son Yao Feng. He was really unscrupulous. Wang Chong could only sigh at the old fox's determination and willpower on this matter. Even though Yao Feng didn't know about it, this didn't hinder Wang Chong's plan. The old fox Yao Guangyi might be a bad person, but this little fox wasn't a good person either. From the incident with Ma Zhou, one could see his sinister intentions. Little sister. A glint flashed across Wang Chong's eyes as he walked over. Since he was certain that Yao Feng didn't know anything, Wang Chong couldn't be bothered to explain to him. There's no need to hold back. Break his bones. You dare. The group of people, including Yao Feng on the ground, were shocked. All right. Amidst the shocked voices in the room, the Wang family's little sister's childish voice was exceptionally crisp. The Wang family's little sister had never thought about her brother's orders, much less doubted him. Since her brother said that he wanted to beat the other party up, there must be a reason behind it. Boom! Under the shocked gazes of the entire room, the Wang family's little sister raised her horrifying hands up high and punched down. Ah! A shrill cry of agony pierced through the air, causing the entire vast crane pavilion to tremble. In the basement of the vast crane pavilion, when people were thrown out one after another, Yao Guangyi didn't pay them any heed. He tried his best to console Wang Yan, saying, "It's fine, I didn't say anything." But when Yao Feng's voice sounded, Yao Guangyi was shocked and he stood up immediately. Yao Guangyi had heard everything clearly from the moment the first person was thrown out. However, he didn't expect that his son Yao Feng would be dragged into the matter as well. He was well aware of Yao Feng's cultivation realm. The number of scions in the capital who could surpass him could be counted on one's fingers. Furthermore, he had stationed many experts in the vast crane pavilion. To be able to injure Fenger despite being heavily surrounded, it wasn't hard to imagine how strong his cultivation realm was. Furthermore, Fenger was the only male in the Yao clan. Recently, he was prepared to support Fenger so that he could inherit his legacy. If anything were to happen to Fenger, wouldn't the Yao clan be extinct? How was he going to answer to the ancestors of the Yao clan then? At this point, Yao Guangyi couldn't sit still any longer. "Brother Wang, please forgive me." After saying those words, Yao Guangyi's robe fluttered and a majestic golden flame gushed out from beneath his feet. Hung long long. With a flash of light, a huge hole appeared on the ceiling of the room. Yao Guangyi had actually broken through the floor and headed straight for the third floor of the vast crane pavilion. Chapter 10. Yao Feng, you sent Ma Zhou to harm me. Now let's return the favor. Wang Chong squatted on Yao Feng's back, and with the help of his little sister, he exerted all of his strength and struck Yao Feng's face with his fists, leaving Yao Feng with bruises all over his face. Wang Chong was filled with hatred. The elder of the Yao clan plotted against his father, while the younger made Ma Zhou deal with him. One big and one small, neither of them good. If he hadn't returned to 15 years old, the Wang clan would have been destroyed in their hands. This punch is for my big brother. This punch is for myself. Wang Chong's punches rained down on Yao Feng with all his might. Even though Yao Feng's cultivation realm far surpassed Wang Chong's, he was still a human. Furthermore, Wang Chong had been a military commander for 30 years in his previous life, and he was familiar with all kinds of torture methods. He knew where it was the softest, the most painful, and where it was the most vulnerable. Initially, Yao Feng was still stubborn. He didn't want to lose face in the hands of these two kids, so he clenched his teeth and didn't make a sound. But after a few punches, he realized that even though Wang Chong's strength was weaker than his little sister's, it was more than 10 times more painful. Finally, he couldn't help but howl in agony. "Little bastard, you dare!" Boom, the ground trembled. Yao Guangyi broke out from the ground, and this was the scene he saw. Even though Yao Guangyi was a scheming person who didn't show his emotions on his face, he couldn't help but fly into a rage upon seeing Yao Feng's pitiful state. He didn't expect Yao Feng to be in such a state. "You two bastards, hand over your lives!" Yao Guangyi's face was steely. His body trembled and he pounced toward Wang Chong and Wang Xiaoyao. His right hand opened up and flames gathered on his fingers, forming a small sun. It emitted a majestic aura as it enveloped Wang Chong and Wang Xiaoyao. Even though the Wang family's little sister was known for her unparalleled strength, in front of this majestic flame, she paled in comparison. "Little brother." The Wang family's little sister's face turned pale from fright. She was naturally bold and fearless, but that was only when compared to people of the same age. How could she compare to Yao Guangyi, a legendary veteran of the battlefield? "Stop! Whoever dares to make a move, I'll kill this brat first." Wang Chong couldn't see what was going on in the room, let alone see who was attacking him. However, this did not prevent Wang Chong from impeding his opponent. Chong, the knife in his sleeves flicked out and the sharp edge of the blade immediately pressed against Yao Feng's neck. As it hooked inwards, a faint trace of blood immediately seeped out. Just a little more and Yao Feng, Gongzi Yao would really die in the hands of a 15-year-old kid like Wang Chong. Buzz! The intense flames came to an abrupt halt when they were still several feet away from Wang Chong and his sister. Behind the blinding light, Yao Guangyi's ashen face appeared. "Yao Guangyi." Wang Chong's heart skipped a beat. Only now did he see who was the one who attacked him. In his previous life, he had only met Yao Guangyi a few times. This was the first time he met him in this life. Yao Guangyi's gaze was sinister and just like in his memories, an ambitious and ruthless person. "Little bastard, if you dare to hurt my Fenger, I'll tear your body into pieces." Yao Guangyi's face was ashen and his expression was terrifyingly dark. If looks could kill, Wang Chong would have died countless times over. "Hehe, is that so?" Wang Chong sneered coldly. He hated people who threatened him the most, not to mention the one who threatened him was Yao Guangyi. "If you want to tear me into pieces, I'll make sure that you don't have any descendants. I'd like to see if your Yao Feng is as tough as steel to be able to withstand this small knife of mine." As Wang Chong spoke, the blade of the small knife hooked inwards and a trail of blood seeped out. Yao Guangyi and Yao Feng's faces turned pale. "No!" Yao Feng exclaimed in shock. "Gongzi!" The surrounding crowd was shocked as well. Wang Chong and Wang Xiaoyao were both descendants of the Wang clan. Originally, this would just be a small fight and they wouldn't dare to harm their Gongzi's life. After all, the relationship between the two clans was too great. But looking at Wang Chong's expression, everyone realized that this Wang Chong was even crazier than his little sister. He couldn't be judged using common sense. He was capable of doing something like this when he was in a frenzy. "Little bastard, you dare!" Yao Guangyi's eyes widened in anger and his body trembled. He was so angry that his teeth were about to shatter. "Unfilial son! Stop it right now!" A thunderous voice exploded in the room. Not far behind Yao Guangyi, a dignified and familiar figure stood in the room like a towering mountain. "Father! Father!" Wang Chong was overjoyed and he shouted together with Wang Xiaoyao. "Unfilial son! Look at what you've done!" Wang Yan looked at the siblings and his expression was even worse than Yao Guangyi's. What he hated the most in his life were those who went against the law. Previously, when he was drinking with Yao Guangyi in the private room, he mentioned that the capital was an important place and that there were people causing trouble here. Yet, Wang Yan didn't expect that the ones causing trouble in the vast crane pavilion would be his son and daughter. Wang Chong didn't think too much into it. Upon seeing his father appear, Wang Chong was excited. As long as he could lure his father out and disrupt the meeting between him and Yao Guangyi, all his efforts would be worth it. "Father, the situation isn't what you think it is," Wang Chong hurriedly explained. "It was Brother Yao and the men from the Yao residence who made the first move." "Shut up," Wang Yan scolded with an extremely furious expression. "You truly disappoint me. To think that your mother and I thought that you had turned over a new leaf and realized your mistakes. To think that your nature is still hard to change. You have really disappointed me." The entire private room fell silent. Wang Yan's reputation was simply too great. Under his authority, everyone in the vast crane pavilion fell silent. Wang Xiaoyao's face paled in fright and her body trembled. This was the first time she had seen her father fly into such a rage. Wang Xiaoyao could vaguely sense that she had gotten into huge trouble. Wang Chong understood his younger sister's feelings. He grasped her hand and his heart sank. The joy that he had felt a moment ago had already vanished. He had done so much and put in so much effort just to resolve the crisis of the clan. Yet, in the eyes of his father, he was still that stubborn unfilial son. Wang Chong only felt bitterness in his heart. "Yes, father is right. I know my mistake." Wang Chong lowered his head. "Mistake? What mistake?" "They were the ones who made the first move." The Wang family's little sister retorted indignantly. She had always been fearless, but the one she feared the most was her father. The moment her father appeared, her face immediately paled in fear and she kept quiet out of fear. However, when she heard the aggrieved voice of her brother, Wang Chong, she felt indignant and even went against her father for her brother. Even though she was afraid of her father, she didn't want her brother, Wang Chong, to suffer any grievances. Her brother clearly didn't do anything, so why did he have to admit his mistake? Could it be that these people were at fault for bullying him with their numbers? Even though she didn't know why her brother wanted to deal with these people, Wang Xiaoyao believed that her brother definitely had his reasons. "Shut up." Wang Yan flew into a rage. "Little sister, don't say any more." Wang Chong hurriedly pulled his younger sister's hand, even though he felt bad for being misunderstood by his father. But as long as the plan succeeded, everything else didn't matter anymore. Yao Feng was beaten half to death by him, and his little sister in front of everyone. No matter how sly Yao Guangyi was, he wouldn't be able to pull his father together with him. Even a fool wouldn't think that his father was colluding with Yao Guangyi to betray King Qi after knowing what had happened today. Wang Chong could sense that Yao Guangyi was obviously aware of this, which was why he was so furious. As for his father, one day, he would understand his painstaking efforts. The Wang father and son spoke one after another. Yao Guangyi's eyes reddened as he stood by the side. The father and son were echoing each other. Who knew if they were acting or not? "Little bastard, hurry up and release Feng." "Yao Guangyi, shut up." A loud bellow shook the world. Wang Yan's face darkened and he couldn't hold it in any longer. No matter what, Yao Guangyi was still his child. Yet, Yao Guangyi kept calling him little bastard in front of him. What position did he place Wang Yan as a father? Yao Guangyi's actions had crossed the line. Even though they were colleagues, Wang Yan didn't need to be polite to Yao Guangyi. How his children were beaten, scolded, and disciplined was his business. It wasn't up to an outsider like Yao Guangyi to discipline them. Wang. The moment those words were spoken, Yao Guangyi's expression changed. The two of them glared at each other. The small room was filled with hostility because of the words exchanged between the two generals of the Tang dynasty. The moment the two generals flew into a rage, everyone else in the room kept quiet out of fear and didn't dare to move. All the guards of the Yao residence revealed a fearful expression. Seeing this scene, Wang Chong felt slightly comforted. His father was still on his side. However, at this moment, Wang Chong didn't want his father to clash with Yao Guangyi. "Yao Guangyi, if you want your son, I'll return him to you." Wang Chong didn't give the two of them a chance to clash. Wang Chong was familiar with the direction of the future. Even though Yao Guangyi wasn't a good person, it wasn't the time for the two families to completely break off their relationship and fight to the death. Wang Chong pushed Yao Guangyi and used a secret technique. Before Yao Feng could open his mouth, he pressed on the acupoint on his back and knocked him out. Failing to fight a tiger, only to be bitten by the tiger, Wang Chong would never do such a thing. Yao Feng was far stronger than him. If he were to let him go just like that, who knew how much trouble would be stirred up? Yao Guangyi's body flashed and he hurriedly caught his son Yao Feng. Wang Yan, look at how well you've taught your son. Looking at Yao Feng, who was beaten black and blue by the Wang siblings, Yao Guangyi's heart was bleeding. He had prepared a lot for today's plan. He had invited many of King Qi's subordinates and advisors, but he didn't expect his plan to be ruined by the two immature children of the Wang family. Yao Guangyi still couldn't confirm whether this father and son pair had colluded together to put on a show for him. But no matter what, his plan had failed completely. Back then, he had promised King Qi that when King Qi knew about this matter, he would be disappointed in him and might even doubt his abilities. Thinking of this, Yao Guangyi's heart ached even more. Wang Yan, I won't let this matter rest just like that. Even if I report this matter to His Majesty, I will make sure that your Wang clan gives my son an explanation. Yao Guangyi glared at Wang Yan and said hatefully. Since his plan had failed, there was no need for him to continue feigning politeness. Carrying his son, Yao Guangyi led the experts of the Yao residence and left without turning back. The moment Yao Guangyi left, Wang Yan's face darkened. Unfilial son. Hurry up and go back home. Do you think that I haven't embarrassed myself enough here? Wang Yan stared at Wang Chong and said coldly. Turning his gaze, he turned to Wang Xiaoyao. You've disappointed me. Don't follow your third brother too much in the future. Otherwise, you'll learn bad things from him. When you return, you'll be grounded for 3 days. You're not allowed to step out of your room. Father! Wang Xiaoyao cried out anxiously. It was fine for her not to step out, but to be grounded in such a small room, wouldn't she suffocate to death? You're not allowed to bargain. This matter is non-negotiable. Wang Yan said with a cold face. Hearing those words, Wang Chong's heart sank. 3 feet of ice wasn't built in a day. He and Ma Zhou had just gotten into a scandal of forcefully abducting a lady, and now, he fought with the Yao clan Gongzi in the vast crane pavilion. It would be difficult for him to change his father's impression of him. But regardless of whether his father believed him or not, there was one thing that Wang Chong had to say. Father, I know that you won't believe anything I say now, but there's one thing that you must remember. When I return to the encampment by the borders, if you notice the Hu crossing the border, please remember to retreat 50 li. Definitely. What do you mean? Chapter 11. However, Wang Chong didn't explain it in detail. I know that no matter what I say, Father won't believe me. However, there are a few things that Father will know very soon. Firstly, as soon as Father steps out of the vast crane pavilion, the King of Song will definitely summon you. Furthermore, his men will arrive very soon. Secondly, after Father meets with the King of Song, the orders from the Bureau of Military Personnel will arrive soon. Father will have to rush back to the encampment by the borders. Whether these 2 things are true or not, whether I am spouting nonsense or the truth, Father will know. Wang Chong said solemnly. In his previous life, after Father met with Yao Guangyi, the moment he stepped out of the vast crane pavilion, he was immediately summoned by the King of Song. This news was intentionally leaked to the King of Song by Yao Guangyi. This was also a ploy that Yao Guangyi had devised. Due to the tight connection between the two, Father didn't have much time to think. After which, Yao Guangyi and King Qi made use of their connections in the Bureau of Military Personnel to summon Father back to the borders on the same day, causing Father to lose the chance to explain himself before the King of Song. After that, the invasion of the Hu occurred. Initially, this wasn't a huge matter. The Hu didn't have a clear concept of borders, and the invading Hu didn't pose too much of a threat. Given Father's capabilities, he could have easily defeated them. However, at the crucial moment, Yao Guangyi's army suddenly appeared and charged in. The Hu were defeated easily, but it gave the impression that the two of them, or even the Yao and Wang clan, were working together. It was precisely because of this matter that the King of Song flew into a rage. He thought that the Wang clan had betrayed him and sided with King Qi. Wang Chong remembered these matters clearly. However, Wang Chong didn't say much. At this moment, Father wouldn't believe him no matter what he said. If he said too much, it would only backfire on him. However, when Yao Guangyi left the encampment and appeared in his father's territory with his army, everything would become clear. Rome wasn't built in a day, and trust had to be built up bit by bit. As long as he was right about one thing and then another, his father would slowly understand that he wasn't speaking without thinking. As long as Wang Chong did as he said and took the initiative to retreat 50 li when he detected the Wang clan would have truly escaped this calamity. His painstaking efforts were not in vain. But at this time Wang Chong wouldn't point it out no matter what. Hearing Wang Chong's words, Wang Yan was stunned. Even the Wang family's little sister, who didn't know anything, was stunned. She did understand every word that her little brother said. But when they were put together, she didn't understand a single word. What Wang Chong said was too miraculous, almost impossible. What nonsense are you talking about? Wang Yan reacted. Just as he was about to reprimand Wang Chong, he hesitated when he saw the solemn expression on Wang Chong's face. From the looks of it, Wang Chong didn't seem to be talking nonsense. Which father didn't wish for their son to succeed? No matter how disappointed he was with Wang Chong, he still held a sliver of hope for Wang Chong. He hoped that this child would really grow up. But no matter what, Wang Chong's words were too inconceivable. He had just met with the king of Song, and going by convention, it was impossible for the both of them to meet in the near future. Needless to say, summon him the moment they stepped out of the vast crane pavilion. As for the transfer order from the Ministry of War, even he, a commander of the Ministry of War, didn't know about it. How could a child like Wang Chong know about it? Not to mention, Wang Chong had even set a time for these two matters to happen. This was complete nonsense. Father, I know that you don't believe me. But I didn't bring my little sister to the vast crane pavilion to cause trouble. Yao Guangyi harbored malicious intentions and had already set up a trap for his father. He was the one who revealed the matter of father meeting with him to the king of Song. If father doesn't believe me, when the king of Song summons you, he will definitely ask about Yao Guangyi's matter. It's fine if I'm wrong, but if I'm right, father, no matter what, you must say that Yao Guangyi tried to recruit you but you rejected him. I beg of you. As Wang Chong spoke, he kneeled and prostrated himself on the ground, deeply bowing. In the entire Wang clan, he was the only one who understood the danger the Wang clan was facing. At this moment he had already done everything he could. Right now, Wang Chong only hoped that his father would remember what he had said. Enough. Wang Yan was stunned for a moment before he flew into a rage. At this point in time, don't you think that you're embarrassing me? Scram back home immediately. If I find out that you're still fooling around outside and causing trouble, I'll break your legs. Brother, don't say any more. Wang Xiaoyao's body trembled in fear. Her father's complexion was extremely awful and frightening. She had never seen her father so angry in her life. Yes, I understand. Wang Chong shot a consoling gaze toward his little sister and stood up. He didn't try to anger his father anymore. It was already sufficient for him to do this much. Through the window, Wang Chong saw two familiar figures amidst the surging crowd outside. Since the two of them were here, the king of Song should be done as well. Whether it was right or wrong, his father would understand very soon. Perhaps Wang Chong's final taming had worked. Wang Yan's complexion clearly improved. All of you return. We'll talk about today's matter when we return. Flinging his sleeves, Wang Yan's face darkened. Without a word, he walked along the stairs and headed out. Without saying a word, Wang Chong followed closely behind his father. The three of them walked out of the vast crane pavilion. The streets were filled with people. The vast crane pavilion was a famous high-class restaurant in the capital, and such an incident had attracted the attention of countless people. Brother Wang, why are you here? Just as the three of them walked out of the vast crane pavilion, a voice suddenly sounded from the crowd. Wang Yan turned his head and saw two familiar figures looking at him from the crowd. Lord Bao. Lord Lu. Wang Yan was taken aback. However, he soon recovered and walked over to the two of them. One of them was Bao Xian, and the other was Lu Ting. They were both physicians of the royal court. However, the two of them had another identity. Just like Wang Yan, they were the trusted subordinates of the king of Song. Lords, why are you two here? Wang Yan walked over and exchanged pleasantries with the two of them. It's rare for Brother Bao to make an exception and invite me to the vast crane pavilion. This is a once-in-a-thousand-years event, so how could I not come? Lu Ting laughed out loud as he spoke. Lu Ting and Bao Xian were both scholars of the royal court, as well as the aides of the King of Song. However, other than official matters, the two of them rarely interacted with each other. This was the first time Bao Xian had invited them to a high-class place like the vast crane pavilion for a gathering. Wang Chong stood silently behind them. Regardless of whether it was Lu Ting or Bao Xian, Wang Chong wasn't surprised by their appearance at all. In his previous life, the two of them had played an important role as well. In his previous life, when his father and Yao Guangyi met in secret, the two of them were the witnesses to the King of Song. The two of them were the scholars of the royal court, and when they went to the vast crane pavilion for a banquet, they realized that the vast crane pavilion was closed to all guests. Only King Qi's subordinates could enter. Yet, in such a place, Wang Yan met with Yao Guangyi alone. If such words were to reach the King of Song, the outcome would be obvious. This matter had caused a huge uproar in the capital back then. However, Wang Chong knew that there was another truth to this matter. In his previous life, many years after this matter had ended, when everything had become unimportant, he had unintentionally found out about it. Regarding this matter, there was another truth that no one was aware of. Lu Ting was made use of, and the true mastermind was the silent Bao Xian, who was standing by the side. He was the one who intentionally invited Lu Ting to the vast crane pavilion to witness the secret meeting between his father and Yao Guangyi. No one knew that he had already sided with Yao Guangyi and King Qi before this meeting. He first followed Yao Guangyi's instructions and leaked the news of their meeting to the King of Song before inviting Lu Ting. Lu Ting was an upright person who never lied. In this matter, he was the best target to be used. It was because of Lu Ting's testimony that the King of Song began to doubt his father, whom he had trusted for many years. Wang Chong could tell that Bao Xian's complexion wasn't too good. He had invited Lu Ting to be a witness to Wang Yan's betrayal of Yao Guangyi, but he had unintentionally been made use of by Wang Chong, becoming the witness to the fallout between Wang Yan and Yao Guangyi. If Bao Xian is here, then the old butler by the King of Song's side should be here as well. Wang Chong thought. All of this had been arranged beforehand. If Bao Xian was here, then the old butler of the King of Song residence should be here as well. General Wang. As though responding to Wang Chong's thoughts, the earth rumbled and the mountains trembled. A massive and extravagant carriage slowly approached from the street. The bronze wheels of the carriage were engraved with a dragon that represented the identity of the royalty. The curtains of the carriage parted and an elder with a stern face peeked out. His hands were hidden in his sleeves and he was expressionless. A majestic aura emanated from his body, making one feel that he was deep and unfathomable. The King of Song invites you. Please follow me. The elder's eyelids drooped slightly. After saying those words, he turned his head around and stared ahead, as though nothing had happened. In an instant, the entire hall fell silent. Old butler. Wang Yan's heart jolted. He subconsciously turned to look at his third son, Wang Chong, as though he had seen a ghost. Wang Chong's prediction was spot on. He had just walked out of the vast crane pavilion and the King of Song had really sent someone to invite him. Furthermore, it was the old butler who was closest to him and had the highest status. At this moment, Wang Yan's heart was in turmoil and his face was filled with disbelief. As a subordinate of the King of Song for more than a decade, Wang Yan knew better than anyone else that the old butler had a unique status in the King of Song residence. He had practically watched the King of Song grow up, thus he was extremely trusted by the King of Song. If it was just an ordinary summon, there was no need for him to make a move. However, what left Wang Yan even more shocked was how did Wang Chong know of all of this? This was even more shocking than the fact that the King of Song had suddenly sent someone to invite him. Could this be a coincidence? Wang Yan's heart was in turmoil. It wasn't strange for Wang Chong to know that the King of Song would summon him. After all, he was a member of the King of Song's faction, and it was only a matter of time before they met. However, it was truly inconceivable that Wang Chong was able to predict the exact time that the King of Song would summon him. At this moment, Wang Yan's mind was in turmoil and countless thoughts flashed through his mind. No matter how he thought about it, he couldn't understand how this stubborn unfilial son, who only knew how to fool around with a bunch of scoundrels, would know of this matter. The two of you return now. I will deal with this matter after I return. Before he could think further, the old butler was already urging him on the carriage. Wang Yan boarded the carriage and swiftly disappeared in the direction of the King of Song residence. Wang Chong looked in the direction where his father had disappeared and a smile appeared on his face. He could clearly see the shock in his father's eyes before he left. Without a doubt, his plan was working. His father was wavering. However, Wang Chong knew that this was only the beginning. When his father met the King of Song, he would understand that this unfilial son of his might be stubborn and mischievous, but regarding this matter, he had not lied to him at all. "Brother, what should we do? When father returns, we are dead meat." The moment Father Wang left, Wang Xiaoyao immediately grabbed onto Wang Chong in a daze, as though an ant on a hot wok. She still remembered that her father had said that he would take her away when he returned. Although she wasn't afraid of anything, she was still afraid of her father's anger. She was different from Wang Chong. Even if she had 100 guts, she wouldn't dare to disobey Wang Chong in front of her father. Seeing his little sister's panic, Wang Chong couldn't help but laugh. This little sister of his was really silly and adorable. "Don't worry. Father won't come back. We will be fine," Wang Chong said calmly. "Ah." The Wang family's little sister lifted her head in shock. Looking at her brother, she couldn't wrap her head around the situation. "Don't think too much. Just trust me." Seeing his little sister's silly look, Wang Chong couldn't help but chuckle. He reached out and pinched her cheeks. Although his father said that he would come back to deal with them, Wang Chong knew that after his father entered the King of Song residence, he would be transferred to the military camp. He was certain of this. Chapter 12. Lord Lu. Wang Chong bowed, paying no attention to Bao Xian at the side. Third Gongzi. Lu Ting looked at Wang Chong with a smile. He had arrived earlier than Wang Chong, so he was aware of what had happened in the vast crane pavilion. Even though Wang Chong's father Wang Yan was enraged and felt that Wang Chong had caused a huge disaster, Lu Ting didn't think much of it. Yao Guangyi was King Qi's man while Wang Yan was the King of Song's man. The two of them weren't on good terms, and it was normal for them to have conflicts in private. On the other hand, if the King of Song were to know that a 15-year-old lad from the Wang clan had taught Yao Feng of the Yao clan a lesson, not only would he not blame him, he would even be delighted to persuade Wang Yan to punish his son and daughter. Third Gongzi, there is no need to worry. Didn't you just injure the Yao clan, Gongzi? When I return, I will tell the King of Song that the both of you will be fine. Lu Ting chuckled. Really? The eyes of the Wang clan's little sister lit up. She immediately believed his words, causing Lu Ting to burst into laughter. Wang Chong felt warmth in his heart. Even though this Lord Lu had testified against his father in his previous life, he was only made use of in this matter. Thus he spoke of what he saw, so he didn't have a bad heart. Lord Lu is indeed a gentleman, I am impressed. However, while one shouldn't have the heart to harm others, one must be wary of others. Lord Lu needs to be wary of being made use of by vile people. On the surface, some people appear to be loyal, upright, and sanctimonious, but in private, they betray us, surrendering to the Prince of Qi and bending their backs for the sake of 5 buckets of rice. Darren must be on guard against them, Wang Chong said. Even though he was speaking to Lu Ting, his gaze was fixed on Bao Xian, causing the latter's expression to change. Lad, what do you mean by that? Lu Ting wasn't a fool. His expression changed and he immediately followed Wang Chong's gaze to look at Bao Xian. Unlike his father, Lu Ting was much smarter. His father didn't know that a large number of the King of Song's subordinates had defected to the King of Qi, but Lu Ting did. Hearing Wang Chong's words, Lu Ting suddenly thought of Bao Xian making an exception to invite him to the vast crane pavilion, as well as the sudden appearance of the old butler. He suddenly sensed something and his gaze toward Bao Xian changed. The reason why Lu Ting was used was because he was caught off guard. In the eyes of a gentleman, everyone is a gentleman. From the bottom of his heart, Lu Ting never thought that Bao Xian would betray him. However, this trip to the vast crane pavilion was just a simple meal. For so many things to happen, Lu Ting couldn't help but think too deeply into it. Stinking brat, what nonsense are you talking about? Brother Lu, don't listen to his nonsense. Bao Xian was caught unprepared by Wang Chong. At first, he was still very calm, but when he saw Lu Ting's eyes gradually becoming stern, he immediately became flustered. If you don't do anything shameful, You won't be afraid of ghosts knocking at your door in the middle of the night. This was definitely not Bao Xian. In the first place, he was guilty of this matter. And Lu Ting was an upright person with a sharp gaze that could pierce through one's heart. After a child like Wang Chong exposed his secret and Lu Ting's insight, Bao Xian was caught off guard and his mind was in a mess. Bao Xian, I didn't expect you to be such a person. Lu Ting's gaze was cold. Initially he was still skeptical, but at this moment he was certain of it. Wang Chong was just a child, so he couldn't treat his words seriously. However, Bao Xian's reaction had already revealed the problem. He wasn't a 3-year-old child. He couldn't differentiate between truth and lies. Hey, Lord Bao, let me give you a piece of advice. The one who laughs last laughs best. It's still too early to say who will win between the King of Song and King Qi. Be careful that you don't bet on the wrong person. Wang Chong stepped forward and said impolitely. It was indeed comfortable to speak with intelligent people. Initially, he thought that he would have to waste a lot of effort, but to think that Lu Ting was more formidable than he had imagined. He was only giving him a reminder. He didn't expect that Lu Ting would immediately find out the truth. Brother Lu, don't listen to his nonsense. What's wrong with King Qi? Bao Xian was drenched in cold sweat. The more he spoke, the more confused he became. Finally, he couldn't continue and squeezed into the crowd, leaving in a hurry. Lu Ting didn't mind and turned back to look at Wang Chong. Heh! The one who laughs last laughs best. 3rd young master is indeed the heir of the 9th young master. Your words are unique and unique. Lu Ting said with admiration. This 15-year-old boy gave him a very special feeling, and he couldn't be treated lightly. Wang Chong chuckled. As the saying went, the one who laughs last is the best. In his previous world, it was an extremely common saying. However, in this world, Lu Ting had never heard of it before, and he found it novel. Lord, you flatter me. Wang Chong said calmly. His expression was neither servile nor overbearing, and in Lu Ting's eyes it was even more bizarre. Lord Lu, I still have matters to attend to, so I'll take my leave first. Wang Chong bowed and nodded. This was the first time they met, so Wang Chong didn't want to say too much. As long as he left a good impression on Lord Lu Ting, and let him know that he wasn't a true profligate son, it would be fine. With the memories of his previous life, Wang Chong couldn't be clearer. This inconspicuous Lord Lu before him played a very important role by the King of Song's side. Everything he saw, heard, and experienced he would mention to the King of Song. In his previous life, there had once been an incident in which a concubine of a minister celebrated her birthday. Even the minister himself had forgotten about this matter. But on the day of her birthday, the concubine was surprised to receive a gift from King Song. This was the only gift she received on her birthday. After the incident happened, everyone was puzzled no matter how they thought about it. The King of Song hadn't even met his concubine, so how could he know his birthday? It wasn't until later that the minister slapped his head and inadvertently recalled that he had mentioned it to Lu Ting once before. After this incident, almost everyone knew that this Lord Lu Ting had an extraordinary status by the King of Song's side. As long as he knew something, he would tell King Song most of the time. This incident left a deep impression on Wang Chong, so he remembered it. If he left a good impression on the King of Song, it would be very convenient for him to do things in the future. This was also the reason why Wang Chong took the initiative to greet Lord Lu and leave a good impression. Little sister, let's go. Wang Chong beckoned to his little sister, boarded the carriage, and slowly drove toward the Wang residence. Interesting, what an interesting sight. Lu Ting shook his head and a strange glint flashed across his eyes. Only after the pair of siblings left did he turn around. After pondering for a moment, he called for a carriage. Instead of entering the vast crane pavilion, he headed straight for the King of Song residence. At the same time in the Yao clan residence. Amidst the groaning, Yao Feng slowly woke up. He felt an excruciating pain in every single bone in his body. The pair of siblings were extremely ruthless and Yao Feng was sent home. You're awake. An impassive voice sounded. Yao Feng was taken aback. Turning around, he realized that there was a tall figure in the room. The figure's back was facing him, and he was standing by the window. Father. Yao Feng struggled to get up from the bed and walked over. What happened today about that Wang Chong? Tell me everything in detail, no matter how big or small. Yao Guangyi's voice was cold, and it was impossible to discern his emotions. Wang Chong. Yao Feng was taken aback. He really didn't expect that the first thing his father did after he woke up would be to ask about Wang Chong. With his father's status, there was no need for him to care about such a person, right? However, Yao Feng knew his father's temper well. Upon hearing the question, he didn't dare to refute. Instead, he hurriedly recounted everything that had happened. Yao Guangyi's face was clouded and he did not speak for a long time. So you're saying that the reason this pair of siblings were able to barge in is all because of Ma Zhou? Yao Guangyi said. Yes. Just as Yao Feng finished his words, Pa. A slap landed heavily on Yao Feng's face. Half of Yao Feng's face immediately swelled up. Father. Yao Feng clutched the left side of his face as he stared at his father before him in astonishment. This was the first time in his life that his father had hit him like this. Bastard! Do you know how much you've ruined my plans? You know how much effort I've put into this matter today. Yao Guangyi's expression was incomparably ferocious. In the vast crane pavilion, it wasn't appropriate for him to act up before so many people. But now that there was no one, Yao Guangyi finally erupted. Putong! Yao Feng's face changed, and with a putong sound he knelt onto the floor. This was the first time in his life that he had seen his father fly into such a rage. However, Yao Guangyi's anger was still unappeased. Ever since he returned, he had felt that something was amiss with the matter regarding Wang Chong and Wang Xiaoyao. Yet, Yao Guangyi didn't expect that his father would put in so much effort and plan everything out of the ordinary. Yet, he didn't expect that all of his plans would be wasted on a hoodlum in the capital. Ma Zhou? What is that? Under normal circumstances, he wouldn't even be considered as an ant in the eyes of people like them. Yet, the King of Song and King Qi, the two relatives of the royal family, the influential figures of the royal court, were actually stirred up by such an insignificant hoodlum. If news of this were to spread, it would be a complete joke. Our Yao clan could have been able to advance further, but because of you, because of that unknown Ma Zhou, everything has been ruined. Do you know how great of a loss this matter is to our Yao clan? Do you know how important this matter is to King Qi? I have promised him time and time again that there wouldn't be any slip-ups. Initially, Yao Feng thought that this slap was extremely innocent, but as he listened on, he suddenly thought of something and his face turned paler and paler. In just a few breaths his body trembled and cold sweat poured down like rain. Father, I was wrong. I didn't know about this matter at all. Yao Feng was terrified. He definitely knew about King Qi's plan to deal with the King of Song. To deal with the King of Song, the most important thing was to drive a wedge between the King of Song and the Wang clan. And to drive a wedge between the King of Song and the Wang clan, the crux was to drive a wedge between Wang Yan and the King of Song. This was the easiest way for the Wang clan to do it. Yao Feng thought that such an important matter would take a long time. He didn't expect that it would be carried out so quickly. To think that he would unintentionally ruin such an important matter for his father during the banquet in the vast crane pavilion. You can't be blamed for this matter. Looking at Yao Feng's fearful expression, Yao Guangyi's heart softened. After all, he only had this one son. Furthermore, he was also at fault for this matter. In order to deal with Wang Yan, he intentionally sealed off the news, not even telling his own son about it. There were many guests of King Qi in the vast crane pavilion, and most of them probably didn't know what had happened. There was bound to be a loss in every gain. If he had told Yao Feng about it beforehand, such a thing wouldn't have happened. Even though Yao Guangyi tried to console him, Yao Feng still felt deeply uneasy. He knew very well how serious this matter was. If King Qi were to blame him, it wasn't something that his father could bear alone. Father, doesn't that mean that this matter has failed? Yao Feng thought of King Qi. His father had promised King Qi time and time again that nothing would go wrong. Now that something like this had happened, King Qi didn't know how to react. Unlike the King of Song, Yao Feng knew that King Qi wouldn't tolerate the incompetence of his subordinates. Failed. Hearing Yao Feng's words, Yao Guangyi sneered coldly. Then he suddenly quietened down. How can the plan that I, Yao Guangyi, have come up with fail so easily? Since I've fallen out with Wang Yan in the vast crane pavilion, I'll just have to change my plan to the ruse of self-injury. Ah. Chapter 13. Disappointing thing. Seeing Yao Feng's expression, Yao Guangyi couldn't help but curse. This child might be talented, but in terms of scheming, he was still far from the Yao clan. Putting aside the old man above him, he probably didn't even have a tenth of what he had. This was also the reason why Yao Guangyi didn't hand over the authority of the clan to him. Haven't you heard of the saying, trying to cover up only makes things worse? Kneeling on the floor, Yao Feng seemed to have thought of something. His body trembled and a look of realization appeared on his face. Only then did Yao Guangyi nod his head in satisfaction. Even though many people saw us going against each other on Wang Yan's side, we can still say that we did it on purpose. But we can also say that we did it on purpose. As for the King of Song, we have roped in so many of his subordinates and he is already on high alert. As long as we continue to carry out the original plan, incite and expand the suspicion in his heart, when the time comes we will give him a fatal blow at the border. At that time he will still be convinced. Betrayal is one thing, it is human nature to change one's direction. But for someone like the King of Song, if he were to realize that he has been fooled and lied to on purpose, do you know what would happen? Yao Guangyi's voice was sinister and by the end, even Yao Feng felt a chill down his spine. Attacking the city is the worst, attacking the heart is the best. In terms of scheming and human nature, he was still a far cry from his father. In this aspect, Yao Feng could only kneel on the floor and listen. Wang Yan has an upright and inflexible personality. This time when the King of Song summons him, as long as he doesn't respond well or says anything wrong, this matter will be settled without me making a move personally. Yao Guangyi's gaze was deep, as though he could see through the Yao residence and into the distance. But very quickly, he regained his senses and helped Yao Feng up from the floor. Get up, you don't have to worry about this matter. As your father, I have an even more important task for you to do. What? Yao Feng was taken aback. What matter could be more important than the plan between the King of Song, King Qi and his father? That pair of siblings from the Wang clan always makes me feel uneasy. If today's incident was a coincidence, then so be it. It wasn't a big deal. What I'm afraid of is that all of this is not a coincidence. Yao Guangyi frowned deeply, as though he had been struggling for a long time. Them? Yao Feng cried out involuntarily. He didn't expect that the more important matter his father was referring to was this. The two siblings are only in their teens. Do you think they can see through your plan? Yao Feng couldn't believe his eyes. He didn't expect that with his father's wisdom and means, he would actually worry about two kids who weren't even 15 yet. They were in their teens, but weren't they knocked unconscious in the vast crane pavilion as well? Yao Guangyi said with a dark expression. But this is completely different. Yao Feng had to admit that the little girl from the Wang clan was indeed terrifyingly strong. However, Yao Feng didn't believe that these kids were capable enough to compete with his father, Yao Guangyi, in terms of intelligence, and see through a situation that even their father Wang Yan couldn't see through. There's no difference. Just do as I say. Yao Guangyi said coldly. All right. Yao Feng wanted to reject the idea, but after pondering for a moment he suddenly agreed to it. It was one thing for the eldest and second brother of the Wang clan to deal with them. He was weaker than them, so it was one thing for him to suffer a loss. But now, even the third and fourth brother were riding on his shoulders. He had embarrassed himself in front of so many people in the vast crane pavilion. He wouldn't let this matter rest just like that. Even without his father's orders, he would still find a way to deal with the two siblings. I hope that I'm thinking too much into this matter. Hearing Yao Feng's change of heart, Yao Guangyi's complexion turned for the better. Even though the matter regarding the vast crane pavilion had failed, there was still the border for him to make a big fuss about. Even if the two siblings were intelligent, they were the ones who intentionally sabotaged the matter regarding the vast crane pavilion. Yao Guangyi didn't believe that they would obstruct him at the border soon. But it was better to be safe than sorry. No matter what, after the matter regarding the vast crane pavilion, he had to be careful, remember this. No matter what, keep a close eye on them. If there's any news, inform me immediately. Yes. Yao Feng nodded his head. In the massive carriage heading to the King of Song residence, Wang Yan sat upright and unmoving like a mountain. However, his mind was in a mess. All he could think about were the two matters that Wang Chong had mentioned in the vast crane pavilion. Initially, Wang Yan didn't believe a single one of Wang Chong's words. But the truth was placed before him, and he had no choice but to believe it. He had just met the king of Song not too long ago, and the king of Song had really sent an envoy over. Furthermore, it happened to be at the moment when he walked out of the vast crane pavilion. Everything was as Wang Chong had predicted. Wang Yan couldn't understand how Wang Chong knew of it. But this wasn't the crux of the matter. What Wang Yan was concerned about was another matter. I wonder if the king of Song is really looking for me regarding Yao Guangyi? Wang Yan thought to himself. All his life he was upright and upright. No matter what he did, he had a clear conscience, and there was nothing he couldn't tell others. The meeting with Yao Guangyi was just an ordinary banquet. During the banquet, they did not talk about anything important. Given the relationship between the king of Song residents and the Wang clan, Wang Yan didn't think that the king of Song would really look for him over such a matter. No matter what, we will know soon enough whether it's true or not. Wang Yan took in a deep breath, parted the curtains of the carriage and walked down. Not too far away, there was a massive and majestic palace. The words "The King of Song Residence" were written in gold on the signboard at the entrance. Wang Yan followed behind the meticulous old butler, passing through gardens and corridors before entering the main hall of the King of Song Residence. The main hall of the King of Song Residence was empty. When Wang Yan walked in, he saw a massive figure sitting at the top of the silent main hall. He exuded an aura of nobility and elegance. This was the influential figure of the Tang dynasty, the King of Song. Subject Wang Yan pays his respects to His Highness, the King of Song. Wang Yan walked forward and knelt down on one knee. His loud voice reverberated throughout the main hall. The main hall was empty. Other than the King of Song, there was no one else. The King of Song wrapped himself in the darkness above the main hall and didn't move at all. No one knew how long he had been here. For a long time, Wang Yan didn't hear any response from the King of Song. Lifting his head, he subconsciously took a glance. For some reason, Wang Yan felt that the King of Song today was different from usual. "Oh, Wang Yan, you're here." After an unknown period of time, the King of Song jolted awake, as though he had just noticed Wang Yan's presence. Wang Yan frowned unnoticeably. The King of Song seemed to be troubled today. "Yes, Your Highness, you were looking for me?" Wang Yan asked. The main hall fell into a long silence. Since the King of Song didn't speak, Wang Yan waited silently. Honestly speaking, he still couldn't understand what kind of important matter it was for the old butler to summon him from the King of Song. Furthermore, it was so urgent. "I heard that Yao Guangyi invited you to a meal at the vast crane pavilion?" The King of Song hesitated for a long time before speaking. These words seemed to have taken a lot of his strength, and his voice was unusually heavy. Boom! Hearing the words of the King of Song, Wang Yan's heart couldn't help but ripple. Yao Guangyi. When Wang Chong said it, Wang Yan didn't believe him. However, he didn't expect that the reason why the King of Song sent the old butler to look for him was really because of Yao Guangyi. It was just an ordinary meal between him and Yao Guangyi. There wasn't anything between them. Furthermore, there was the friendship between the Wang clan and the Yao residents. Wang Yan didn't believe that the King of Song would suspect him over such a matter. However, the truth was right before him. Wang Chong was right. The King of Song was really suspicious of him. Wang Yan's heart was incomparably heavy. "Yes," Wang Yan replied without any hesitation. He had a clear conscience regarding this matter, and there was nothing for him to hide. "Then what did Yao Guangyi talk to you about?" The King of Song hesitated for a moment before continuing to ask. There seemed to be a peculiar tone in his voice. Hearing the words of the King of Song, the ripples in Wang Yan's heart intensified. The second matter. This was the second matter that Wang Chong was right about. Wang Yan's heart was filled with complex emotions. In his heart, his third son Wang Chong had always been a stubborn and unfilial son. The words of the vast crane pavilion were complete nonsense to Wang Yan. But now Wang Yan didn't dare to think so anymore. "Yao Guangyi wanted to recruit me, but I rejected him," Wang Yan said. If it was before today, Wang Yan wouldn't have said such words. However, after realizing that the King of Song was already suspicious of him because of Yao Guangyi, Wang Yan didn't dare to think so anymore. "Ooh!" A long sigh of relief could be heard in the hall. The originally tense atmosphere suddenly relaxed a lot after Wang Yan's words. It was like a bow that had been pulled to its fullest and was suddenly released from the bowstring. I see. Wang Yan heard the King of Song's voice coming from the top of the hall. His voice wasn't relaxed at all, as though a heavy burden had been lifted off his shoulders. Actually, I have already informed your highness of this matter. Wang Yan's heart skipped a beat as he suddenly spoke. Oh! In the hall, the King of Song's muscular figure abruptly sat up straight. For the first time, a look of surprise appeared on his face. You informed me of this matter? It wasn't a direct report, but a letter. Logically speaking, this letter should have been sent to the King of Song residence yesterday. Did your highness not see it? Wang Yan was even more surprised than the King of Song. That day during the meal, Wang Chong mentioned that he hoped that he would inform the King of Song in advance. Even though Wang Yan didn't think that there was a need for it, he still wrote a letter. However, he didn't expect that the King of Song didn't receive it at all. Manager Zheng, go out and check on it. The King of Song frowned. For the first time he felt that something was amiss. The old manager, who had a majestic aura and looked unfathomable, left in a hurry. After a short while, he returned and walked briskly to the side of the King of Song, whispering a few words to him. Even though Wang Yan couldn't hear what they were saying, he could see that the King of Song's expression had clearly softened and looked much better. Wang Yan couldn't help but secretly rejoice that he had finally listened to Wang Chong's words and written a letter to the King of Song. Otherwise, he probably wouldn't be able to explain it. Indeed, this matter did happen. It's just that I've been too busy recently and forgot to look at it. That's my oversight. The King of Song smiled faintly and said, let's not talk about this. It's rare for the general to return to the capital. Thinking that it's been a long time since we got together, I specially asked the old manager to pick you up. How is it? Is everything all right in the barracks? The King of Song changed the topic and asked about the barracks. As he spoke, he stood up from his seat and walked down. It was a middle-aged man with a ruddy complexion and the air of royalty. His face was warm and amiable, as though nothing had happened. Thanks to your highness, everything is fine. Wang Yan was a typical soldier. When he heard the King of Song ask about the border, he naturally told him everything he knew. The atmosphere in the hall instantly became much more intimate. The King of Song residence and the Wang family had been friends for several generations. When they talked about it to the fullest, the two of them couldn't help but laugh. Chapter 14. Wang Yan walked out of the King of Song's residence with the cold wind blowing on his face. However, his heart was not at ease at all. Wang Chong's words reverberated in his mind. Wang Yan couldn't help but admit that he had wronged his third son on the matter of Wang Chong. A leopard never changes its spots. Wang Yan had always thought that this unfilial son of his had reverted back to his old ways, causing trouble everywhere he went. However, if not for Wang Chong's reminder, Wang Yan would not have known that the King of Song was already dissatisfied with his relationship with Yao Guangyi. Wang Yan was a pure soldier, but that did not mean that he was clueless. The greatest taboo for an official was to be taboo for the superior. The friendship between the Song and Wang clans spanned several generations. It would be a great sin if it were to be destroyed just because of a single wrong word that he had said. However, even so, Wang Yan still found it hard to believe Wang Chong's words. How is this possible? Yao Guangyi is framing me? Wang Yan looked up at the sky and sighed. Wang Chong said that Yao Guangyi was framing him, but Wang Yan still did not believe it. At most, he and Yao Guangyi only met once and had a drink. They didn't talk about anything else during the banquet. How could Yao Guangyi frame him? Could it be that drinking once and meeting once was framing? Wasn't this too easy and ridiculous? Wang Yan shook his head, unable to understand. Just as he was deep in thought, the sound of horse hooves could be heard from the street in the distance. Wang Yan's heart skipped a beat. He raised his head and saw a black horse galloping towards him. Is that General Wang Yan? On the horse, a general with a flag on his back shouted from afar. Yes. What's the matter? Wang Yan's eyes narrowed and his expression was stern. The Ministry of War has orders for the general to return to the encampment immediately. The general's face was dark. With a flick of his wrist, a red arrow shot out. Without another word, He turned his horse around and galloped away, disappearing into the wind with the clip-clop of his hooves. Wang Yan grabbed the red arrow token in his hand. When he saw the word fire written on the arrow token, his expression immediately changed. Military orders were like a falling mountain. The word fire on the Ministry of War's transfer order meant that it was extremely urgent. In other words, the moment he received the order, he had to rush to the encampment without stopping. The third matter. Wang Yan looked at the arrow token in his hand, and his heart was in turmoil. He had just met the King of Song. He hadn't even crossed the steps of the King of Song's mansion when he received the transfer order from the Ministry of War. The time was exactly as Wang Chong had said. This was simply inconceivable. Wang Yan couldn't understand how Wang Chong knew about it. The suspicions in Wang Yan's heart grew heavier and heavier. Yao Guang Wang Chong. There were too many mysteries in this matter. Now there's only one matter left, Wang Yan thought to himself. He recalled what Wang Chong had said about retreating 50 li. It had been many years since the Hu had invaded his encampment. Wang Yan also couldn't understand why his third son, Wang Chong, would so solemnly request him to retreat 50 li if he encountered an invasion of the Hu. No matter how one looked at it, this matter was baffling. If it was in the past, Wang Yan definitely wouldn't have taken it seriously. But now, Wang Yan had no choice but to carefully consider it. No matter what, when I reach the border, everything will come to light. Keeping the arrow token, Wang Yan walked down the steps of the King of Song's mansion. He didn't return to the Wang family residence, but headed straight for the encampment. Jingyuan has betrayed us. Almost at the same time that Wang Yan left in the King of Song's mansion, the King of Song's face darkened, and he said something completely different. There was one thing that he didn't tell Wang Yan. The King of Song's residence actually didn't have Wang Yan's letter. But that letter had indeed been delivered to the King of Song's residence. Yet another defector who defected to King Qi's side. The old butler's complexion didn't look too good. After Wang Yan's letter reached the King of Song's residence, it was taken away by one of the King of Song's aides, Zhang Yuan. In this period of time, too many people had betrayed the King of Song and defected to King Qi's side. Without a doubt, Zhang Yuan was one of them. Bastards! I've treated them well, and yet they treat me like this. The King of Song clenched his fists, his face filled with rage. He wasn't a suspicious person by nature, but right now, King Qi was going around persuading the people around him. Seeing that the situation wasn't right, the people around him all changed sides. Many of the people that he had trusted a lot in the past had defected to King Qi's side. Given the circumstances, the King of Song couldn't help but feel suspicious. It's a pity for Wang Yan. The Wang clan has always been loyal to me. From the looks of it, I've wronged him on this matter. The King of Song said guiltily. Your Highness, there's no need to blame yourself. Yao Guangyi is King Qi's trusted aide. For Wang Yan to have a secret meeting with him in the vast crane pavilion at this moment, anyone would be suspicious. Your Highness can't be blamed for this. However, it's still too early to say whether the Wang clan is innocent or not. Even though the children of the Wang and Yao clan had a conflict in the tavern, couldn't it be an act of self-mutilation? It can't be that Your Highness has forgotten about the matter with Zhou Chong back then? The old butler spoke without any change in his expression. Wang. Hearing those words, the King of Song's complexion immediately changed. The matter with Zhou Chong was something that happened during the reign of the previous emperor. Because of this matter, countless officials in the royal court were demoted. Even the King of Song's father, the King of Song, was implicated and spent 3 months in the imperial prison. The lineage of the King of Song residence was nearly stripped of their nobility due to this matter. As such, the King of Song had a deep impression of this matter. You mean to say, the King of Song's face twitched. His relaxed brows knitted together once more as he fell into deep thought. I didn't say anything. Your Highness is a kind person. If the Wang clan remains loyal to you, that would be a good thing. However, Your Highness has to be wary of it. After all, it's hard to tell what is in a person's heart. If the Wang clan is indeed wronged in this matter, Your Highness is willing to compensate them however you want. However, it isn't wise for us to jump to conclusions now. The old butler said impassively. The King of Song was a kind person, but as the old butler of the King of Song residence, he had served a few princes, and he had seen too many schemes and plots in the royal court. There were no eternal friends, only eternal interests. As the old butler of the King of Song residence, he was only loyal to the interests of the King of Song. Isn't it easy to find out the truth? The King of Song was silent for a moment before suddenly smiling. Your Highness, are you talking about Academic Lu? The old butler seemed to have guessed it. Didn't Academic Lu go to the vast crane pavilion with Bao Xian? You can ask him about this matter. He can't be any clearer. The King of Song nodded his head solemnly, a respectful expression on his face. He had already received news that Lu Ting was waiting outside. Paying respects to Your Highness the King of Song. A moment later a figure walked in. Dressed in a white scholar's robe, Lu Ting bowed deeply to the King of Song. Academic Lu, I heard that you went to the vast crane pavilion as well? The King of Song asked. There was one person in the royal court that he didn't doubt, and that was Lu Ting. This wasn't just because Lu Ting was an upright person who wouldn't betray him. It was also because Lu Ting had once saved his life. Back then he wasn't the King of Song and he didn't have his current standing. Due to a certain matter, he was suspected of plotting a rebellion, and he was implicated in the rebellion. Back then, Duke Zhou was dispatched to the borders to deal with the Turkic Khaganate. At that moment the war was in full swing and it was beyond his reach. Everyone in the royal court was in danger, and no one spoke up for him. At this moment, only the newly promoted academic Lu Ting risked defending the new emperor and being labeled as a rebel to rebuke the new emperor. In fact, he even chased after the new emperor all the way to the back palace, knocking his forehead against a pillar and nearly dying. It was because of Lu Ting's rebuke that the new emperor paid attention to the matter and reopened the trial. Thus, the King of Song was cleared of suspicion and his life was saved. As this matter happened in the back palace, not many people knew about it. Lu Ting had never publicized it, and he didn't mention it before the King of Song either. The King of Song only learned of this matter from the new emperor. From then on, the King of Song treated Lu Ting with utmost respect. He was also willing to listen to his opinions. Bao Xian invited me there. Not only did he go there, but he also encountered something interesting there. Even if Your Highness didn't ask about it, I would have told you about it. Lu Ting said with a smile. Oh, tell me about it. A glint flashed across the eyes of the King of Song, and his interest was piqued. He was well aware of Lu Ting's personality. An interesting matter that came from the mouth of this renowned scholar was definitely extraordinary. Your Highness should know about the conflict between the Wang clan's siblings and the Yao clan's Gongzi, Duke Yao, in the vast crane pavilion, right? Lu Ting smiled. I know about it, but I'm not too sure about it. Could the matter that Scholar Lu spoke of be related to them? The King of Song asked curiously. His original intention was to ask Lu Ting about the matter between Yao Guangyi and Wang Yan. However, after hearing Lu Ting talk about the conflict between the children of the two families, he forgot about this matter. Lu Ting didn't hide anything. He spoke of the matter that he had heard about the siblings outside the vast crane pavilion, especially the conversation between Wang Chong and Bao Xian. He spoke of it in great detail. As for the part where the King of Song was concerned about Wang Yan, Lu Ting brushed it aside. Initially, the King of Song only listened to it with interest, treating it as an anecdote. But eventually he was completely captivated. That means that Bao Xian has already betrayed King Qi. The King of Song's complexion darkened. His original intention was to ask about Wang Yan, but he didn't expect to stumble upon a traitor, Bao Xian. To the King of Song this was a huge blow. If Your Highness is vexed over Bao Xian's matter, there's no need for you to be vexed over it. Bao Xian isn't the first to betray Your Highness, and he definitely won't be the last. There's no need for Your Highness to be vexed over such matters. Lu Ting smiled faintly. He wasn't as vexed as the King of Song. When the tree falls, the monkeys scatter. Those who want to leave won't be able to stay. Those who stay won't be able to leave. If those who have sided with King Qi were to remain here, they would only be a scourge. It would be better for them to leave. Just like what the Wang clan's third young master, Wang Chong, said, the one who laughs in the end is the one who laughs best. The competition isn't over yet, so why should the King of Song be discouraged? This is also what I wanted to say to Your Highness the King of Song. Your Highness has so many subordinates by your side. But in my opinion, in terms of insight and knowledge, they are inferior to that 15-year-old Wang Chong. Hearing Lu Ting's words, the king of Song couldn't help but smile. Even the tense-old butler's expression eased up a little. He had a favorable impression of the young man whom he hadn't interacted with much before. The one who laughs in the end is the one who laughs best. He, well said. Well said. Academic Lu is right. Not only are Bao Xian and the others inferior to that Wang clan's third son, even I am far inferior. Wang Yan has a good son. The king of Song smiled. He suddenly had a favorable impression of this 15-year-old young man whom he had never met before, but whose words were full of witty words. In his current situation, where he was almost deserted by everyone, there was nothing more gratifying than hearing such words of support from a seemingly inexperienced child. At the side, seeing the smile on the king of Song's face, Lu Ting heaved a sigh of relief. He had served the king of Song for many years and knew how difficult the latter's situation was. In his heart, he really hoped that the latter could get past this hurdle. Speaking of that Wang clan's third son, Lord Lu seems to favor him quite a bit. The king of Song looked at Lu Ting and suddenly said with a smile, "That's right." Lu Ting didn't avoid the topic. In front of the king of Song, he frankly admitted that Wang Chong is indeed not simple to have such insight and knowledge at such a young age. In time, his future will be limitless, and he might even become an important figure in the imperial court. The king of Song and the Wang clan have always been on good terms. With the Wang clan's Qilin son, the king of Song will definitely have a great help in the future. Isn't this something to be congratulated for? Lord Lu's evaluation of the Wang clan siblings is actually so high. The king of Song's eyebrows shot up. He was truly taken aback. Your Highness, if that Wang Chong was only able to see through Bao Xian's disguise, it would only mean that he is slightly intelligent. Even though such a person is rare, there are plenty of them in the capital. Furthermore, even without this matter, Your Highness should have already harbored suspicions of Bao Xian, right? Lu Ting said. Could there be another reason? The king of Song frowned in incomprehension. Even though it seems like the Wang clan siblings have disrupted the meeting between Yao Guangyi and Wang Yan because of Ma Zhou's matter. But somehow I feel that this matter isn't as simple as it seems. Lu Ting hesitated for a long moment before speaking. What? The king of Song was astonished. Even the old butler, whose aura was as deep as the abyss, raised his pale eyebrows and revealed a surprised expression. Even though Lu Ting didn't say it clearly, he knew that if the siblings intentionally went to the vast crane pavilion to wreak havoc, then everything would be different. If that was true, then Lu Ting's evaluation of the siblings wasn't high at all. Not only that, it was low. Academic Lu, why do you feel that way? You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.